I was a Navy SEAL hand-to-hand combat instructor for 10 years. My ex-wife's new 26-year-old boyfriend shoved my daughter. Your dad's just a fat old man. He can't stop me. Then he slapped her. I drove to his gym. His MMA coach laughed. What are you gonna do, Grandpa? I smiled. By the time I left, him and 3 of his fighters needed ICU. His brother, a gang leader, showed up at my work. Big mistake. The restaurant was called Lumiere. Of course it was. Everything in my wife's family had to have a French name or an Italian pedigree or some connection to old money that wasn't actually that old when you look at closely enough. But perception was everything to the Ashtons. Perception was the currency they traded in, the air they breathed, the religion they practiced in their gated community cathedral. I should have known something was wrong the moment Charlotte suggested we celebrate my 35th birthday there. Charlotte, my wife of 7 years, the woman I'd met in a coffee shop when she was slumming it in grad school and I was finishing my PhD in computational mathematics, had never been particularly interested in my birthdays before. Last year, she'd forgotten entirely until her assistant reminded her at 9 p.m., and she'd ordered me a cake from the bakery downstairs from her office. The year before that, she'd been in Mykonos with her sister and mother, and I'd spent the evening alone with a bottle of wine and a documentary about prime numbers. But this year, she insisted, Lumiere, 8 o'clock, dress well. I wore the suit she'd bought me 2 years ago, the one I only wore to her family's events because it cost more than my first car and made me feel like I was wearing someone else's skin. Navy blue, Italian wool, tailored to within an inch of its life. I looked good in it. I looked like someone who belonged at Lumiere. I didn't belong at Lumiere. The restaurant occupied the top floor of the Ashton Tower. Yes, they owned the building and offered panoramic views of the city skyline, floor-to-ceiling windows, servers who moved like ghosts, wine lists that read like rare book catalogs, the kind of place where you could spend a month's rent on dinner and still walk away hungry if you ordered wrong. I arrived exactly on time, 8 o'clock, and found Charlotte already seated, with her mother and her sister and her father and her brother. The entire Ashton family, arranged around a table like judges at a tribunal. My stomach dropped. There he is, Charlotte's mother, Victoria, announced with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She was 63 but looked 45, thanks to a small fortune in preventative procedures and a lifetime of never having to worry about anything except how she looked while not worrying. Her hair was that particular shade of blonde that only comes from very expensive salons, and her jewelry probably cost more than my student loans. The birthday boy. David, Charlotte said, rising to kiss my cheek. Her perfume was new, something I didn't recognize. You're right on time. Of course, I said, trying to read her face. Her expression was pleasant, neutral, giving nothing away. 7 years of marriage, and sometimes I felt like I was still trying to crack her code. I didn't realize this was a family dinner. Oh, we wouldn't miss it, her father, Robert, said. He didn't stand. Robert Ashton never stood for anyone who wasn't worth at least 8 figures. 35 is a significant milestone. Is it? I asked, taking my seat between Charlotte and her sister, Melissa. It's halfway to 70, Melissa said, already filming me with her phone. She was 28, perpetually online, and treated life like an endless content opportunity. That's pretty significant. Mel, put the phone away, Charlotte said, but her tone was casual, permissive. The tone you'd use with a child you didn't actually expect to obey. Melissa lowered the phone slightly. It was still pointed in my direction. A server appeared, young, beautiful, terrified, and poured wine I didn't choose. It was red. It probably cost more than my monthly salary as an adjunct professor. I didn't drink. So, Victoria said, leaning forward with that smile still fixed in place. David, how does it feel to be 35? Same as 34, I said. Pretty much identical to 33, if I'm being honest. Still teaching at the community college? Robert asked. University, I corrected quietly. Adjunct position. I teach graduate-level algorithm theory and yes, he waved his hand dismissively. How much does that pay again? There was a silence. Charlotte looked at her plate. Enough, I said. Enough, Robert repeated, tasting the word like he'd tasted the wine, finding it wanting. Interesting definition of enough. Dad, Charlotte's brother Marcus said. He was the only one in the family I'd ever felt didn't actively despise me. Let's not. I'm just making conversation, Robert said. It's a fair question. A man should know his worth. Speaking of which, he nodded at Victoria. Victoria reached into her handbag, something leather and obscenely expensive, and withdrew an envelope. Cream-colored, heavy stock. The kind of envelope that either contained a wedding invitation or very bad news. She slid it across the table toward me. "Happy birthday, David," she said. The restaurant noise seemed to fade. The clinking of silverware, the murmur of other diners, the soft jazz playing through invisible speakers. It all receded until there was only the sound of my own heartbeat and the envelope sitting in front of me like a small white bomb. "What is this?" I asked. "Open it," Victoria said. I looked at Charlotte. She was still looking at her plate. Her jaw was tight. I knew that expression. It was the one she wore when she'd already made a decision and was just waiting for everyone else to catch up. "Charlotte," I said. "Just open it, David," she said softly. Melissa raised her phone higher. She wasn't even pretending now. She was recording. I picked up the envelope. It was heavier than it should have been. Inside, I could feel the weight of multiple pages. My hands were steady as I opened it, which surprised me. I felt like I should be shaking. Like there should be some physical manifestation of what I already knew was coming. The first page was a letter, printed on Ashton family letterhead. "Dear David, after careful consideration and numerous family discussions, we have come to a unanimous decision regarding your marriage to our daughter, Charlotte. It is clear that this union has not been beneficial to either party, and in the interest of everyone's future well-being, we believe it is time to dissolve this relationship. The enclosed documents have been prepared by our legal team. You will find the terms to be fair and straightforward. Charlotte will retain all marital assets, which is appropriate given that they are primarily derived from family sources. You will receive a one-time settlement of $50,000, which we trust you will find more than adequate compensation for your time. We expect your cooperation in finalizing these arrangements quickly and quietly. Any attempt to contest these terms or create difficulty for our family will be met with the full force of our legal and financial resources. This decision comes from all of us. It is final. Sincerely, The Ashton family behind it were the divorce papers. I read them, all of them, every page, every clause, every condition. The table was silent while I did. Melissa's phone was still recording. I could see the little red light in my peripheral vision, a small red eye watching, waiting for me to break. The terms were worse than the letter suggested. No alimony, no division of assets, no claim to the apartment we'd lived in, which was technically owned by a family trust anyway. No claim to the car she'd bought me because it was in her name. No claim to anything, just the $50,000 minus reasonable legal fees, which would probably eat up half of that. 7 years of marriage reduced to maybe $25,000, and a letter that began, "Dear David," and ended with someone else's signature. I set the papers down carefully, straightened them, aligned the edges. "Well?" Victoria asked. I looked up, looked around the table, at Victoria with her predatory smile, at Robert with his casual contempt, at Melissa with her phone, at Marcus, who at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, at Charlotte, who was finally looking at me with something that might have been guilt, or might have been impatience, or might have been nothing at all. "From all of you," I said. "From all of us," Victoria confirmed. "This is a family decision, David, nothing personal." "Nothing personal," I repeated. "You're a nice man," Charlotte said quietly. "You were always a nice man, but this isn't working. You have to see that. We're in different worlds. We always have been." "Different worlds," I said. "Stop repeating everything," Melissa said, still filming. "Say something interesting." "Mel," Marcus warned. "What? This is boring. I thought he'd cry or something." "You're recording me," I said, looking at her. "For what? Social media? Are you going to post this? Watch me destroy my brother-in-law's life for likes?" "It's just for us," Melissa said, but she was smiling. She was enjoying this. "Family memories." "Family," I said. I looked down at the papers again, at my birthday present, at the gift the Ashtons had wrapped in expensive paper and delivered with champagne and witnesses. Something inside me, something that had been bending for 7 years, warping, compressing, taking on the weight of constant small humiliations, finally broke. Not broke like shattered, broke like a door breaking open. "Thank you," I said. Victoria blinked. "What?" "Thank you," I repeated, gathering the papers. The letter, the divorce documents, all of it. I folded them neatly and tucked them inside my jacket pocket. "This is incredibly generous. $50,000 minus legal fees. That's what, 25,000, maybe 30 if I'm lucky." "David," Charlotte started. "No, really," I said, standing. "I appreciate it. I appreciate all of this. The dinner, the venue, the whole family being here. Melissa recording it for posterity. This is exactly what I needed." "Sit down," Robert said. "I think I'm going to go," I said. "But please don't let me ruin your evening. Order dessert. Celebrate. This is what you wanted, right? What you've all wanted for years." "You're being dramatic," Victoria said. "Am I?" I looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman who'd never once called me by name without making it sound like an insult. Who'd introduced me at parties as Charlotte's husband, with the same tone someone might use to say Charlotte's unfortunate rash. Who'd made it clear from day one that I was temporary, tolerated, and ultimately disposable. "I don't think I'm being dramatic enough." "David," Charlotte said, standing now too. Her voice had an edge, the edge she used when things weren't going according to plan. "Let's discuss this at home." "This is our home now?" I asked. "Your apartment that I'm not allowed to claim in the divorce? That home?" "You're embarrassing yourself," Robert said. "Good," I said. "I've spent 7 years being embarrassed by all of you. It's nice to return the favor." I pulled out my wallet, drew out several bills, $160, which was about half of what was in there, and set them on the table. "For my share of dinner," I said. "I know how you feel about freeloaders." "You don't have to," Marcus started. "I do, though," I said. "That's the thing. I've always had to prove myself, had to justify my existence in your world, had to be grateful for every scrap of tolerance you threw my way, had to smile while you made jokes about my salary and my background and my insufficient net worth, had to pretend I didn't notice every little way you made it clear I wasn't good enough." "If you felt that way," Victoria said coldly, "you should have said something." "I did," I said, "over and over, but you can't hear what you've decided doesn't matter." I looked at Charlotte one more time. 7 years ago, she'd been different. Or I'd thought she was different. Or maybe she'd never been different, and I'd just been very good at lying to myself. She'd seemed curious about the world outside her bubble, interested in ideas, excited by the notion that there were things money couldn't buy and problems it couldn't solve. She'd read my papers on algorithmic complexity and said they were beautiful. She'd asked questions. She'd listened. Or maybe she'd just been slumming. Maybe I'd been a curiosity, a brief walk on the wild side before she returned to the world she was born to inherit. "I loved you," I said. She flinched, just slightly. "I actually loved you, despite everything, despite your family, despite the fact that you were ashamed of me from the moment we got married. Despite knowing I'd never be enough, I loved you." "David." "But you're right," I said. "This isn't working. It never was, so yes. Thank you for the divorce, for the papers, for doing this publicly on my birthday with your sister recording it like a fucking reality show. Thank you for making this easy." I turned to leave. "Easy?" Victoria's voice was sharp. "You think this is easy? You think you can just walk out of here and what?" I stopped, turned back. "What exactly do you think I'm going to do? Contest the divorce? Fight you in court? Make your lives difficult?" I smiled. It felt strange on my face, like wearing a mask that didn't quite fit. "No, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to sign the papers. Take my $25,000, disappear from your lives completely. Isn't that what you want?" Victoria's eyes narrowed. "Yes." "Then we agree," I said. "For the first time in 7 years, we actually agree on something." Remarkable. I walked toward the exit. The entire restaurant was watching now. Diners had stopped eating. Servers had stopped serving. Even the jazz seemed quieter. At the elevator, I pressed the button. Behind me, I heard Charlotte's voice. "David, wait." The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside. "I'm sorry it had to be like this," she called out. The door started to close. "No, you're not," I said, just loud enough for her to hear. And then the doors closed, and I was alone in a mirrored box descending. I looked at my reflection, at the man in the expensive suit that wasn't really his, the man who'd just been divorced by committee, the man whose wife's sister had filmed his humiliation for entertainment, and I started laughing. Not hysterical laughter, not broken laughter, satisfied laughter, because they had no idea. They had no idea what I'd already done. They had no idea what was already in motion. They had no idea that their gift, this divorce, these papers, this public humiliation, was exactly what I'd been waiting for. The elevator reached the ground floor. The doors opened. I walked out into the night, into the city, into the rest of my life. And behind me, 37 floors up, the Ashton family sat in their expensive restaurant with their expensive wine, celebrating their victory. They wouldn't be celebrating for long. 3 months earlier, the discovery was an accident. Most of the important things in life are. I'd been looking for a stapler in Charlotte's home office, the room in the apartment that I was technically allowed to enter, but had learned to avoid because nothing good ever came from being in there, when I found the folder. It was red, leather, expensive like everything the Ashtons touched. It was tucked in the back of her filing cabinet, behind warranties for appliances I didn't know we owned, and investment statements I wasn't supposed to see. I wasn't snooping. Let me be clear about that. I know how this sounds. I know what you're thinking. But I genuinely was just looking for a stapler because mine had broken and I needed to compile some lecture notes. And Charlotte had 3 staplers in her office, and I thought she wouldn't mind if I borrowed one. The folder fell out when I pulled open the drawer. Papers spilled across the floor. And as I bent to gather them, I started reading. I wish I could say I stopped myself, that I recognized this was private and put everything back and walked away. But I didn't. Because the first page I picked up had my name on it. David Chen, background review. Below it in small type. Prepared by Ashton Family Legal, June 2018. The year we got married, I sat down on the floor and started reading. It was a background check, a comprehensive one, the kind that costs serious money and turns over every stone in a person's life. My education, every school, every grade, every standardized test score, my employment history, my credit score, my medical records, which I had no idea they could access, my family background, my parents' immigration history, their financial situation, their jobs, my mother's bankruptcy in 2009, my father's struggle with English, the apartment I grew up in, described as lower-income housing, the scholarship I'd needed for college because my parents couldn't afford tuition, everything, every private detail, every vulnerability, everything I might have been ashamed of or tried to hide or simply considered my own business. All of it documented, analyzed, and filed away. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the summary page. Assessment: David Chen presents as a suitable temporary match for Charlotte Ashton, pending family approval and periodic review. Subject is intelligent, non-threatening, and unlikely to cause social embarrassment if managed properly. His lack of family wealth and social connections ensures dependency on the Ashton family, which provides leverage if dissolution becomes necessary. Recommendation: approve marriage. Implement standard prenuptial agreement with full asset protection. Monitor financial activities. Plan for eventual separation within 5-7 years, pending Charlotte's personal timeline and family objectives. I read it 3 times. Each time, different words jumped out. Temporary match, non-threatening, manage properly, leverage, dissolution, eventual separation, pending Charlotte's personal timeline. They'd planned this before I'd even proposed, before Charlotte had even told me she loved me. Her family had investigated me, assessed me, and decided I was acceptable for a short-term arrangement. I was never meant to be permanent. I was a phase, an experiment, a box to check on Charlotte's journey to whatever her life was supposed to be. The brilliant grad student who dated the poor professor. How bohemian, how romantic, how temporary. I kept digging through the folder. There were financial projections, models showing how much a divorce would cost at various intervals. Year 3, year 5, year 7, year 10. They'd literally done the math on when it would be most cost-effective to dispose of me. There were drafts of separation agreements, each one more brutal than the last. I recognized the language from the papers I'd signed 3 months later in the restaurant. There were emails, so many emails. Victoria to Charlotte, and are you sure about this? He's nice enough, but 7 years is a long time to maintain an image that doesn't serve you. Charlotte to Victoria, I know, but I'm not ready yet. Can we wait until after his birthday? I don't want him to think I'm cruel. Melissa to Charlotte, OMG, just dump him already. You're basically supporting him. You could do so much better. Charlotte to Melissa, it's complicated. He thinks we're happy. Robert to Victoria, I've spoken with Martin about the severance package. $50K is more than generous given his contribution to the family. We should frame it as a gift. Make him grateful. Victoria to Robert, agreed, and we'll do it publicly. Better that way, cleaner. If there are witnesses, he's less likely to make a scene later. I sat on the floor of that office for an hour reading everything. Every WAM, every email, every calculation, every cold clinical dissection of my marriage, my life, my worth. They were planning to divorce me at dinner. They were going to make it public. They were going to film it. They were going to make me thank them for it. And they genuinely believed that I would take the money, sign the papers, and disappear gratefully into whatever lower income housing they assumed I'd crawl back to. I thought about confronting to Charlotte, walking into the bedroom we shared and showing her what I'd found, demanding an explanation, forcing her to admit that our entire marriage had been a temporary arrangement I'd never been informed about. But then I thought, what would that accomplish? She'd deny it, or worse, she'd admit it and not care. She'd tell me I was being dramatic, that this was just practical planning, that every wealthy family does this, that I should have known what I was getting into. And maybe she'd be right. Maybe I should have known. Maybe the signs were always there, and I'd just been too in love or too stupid to see them. I put the folder back exactly where I'd found it, took the stapler I'd originally been looking for, went back to my desk in the corner of the living room where I was allowed to work, stapled my lecture notes, and then I started planning. If they wanted a calculation, I'd give them a calculation. If they wanted to divorce me at dinner, I'd let them divorce me at dinner. If they wanted to film my reaction, I'd give them a reaction to film. But I wouldn't be the variable they'd accounted for in their projections. I wouldn't be the non-threatening, manageable, grateful recipient of their severance package. I'd be the error that broke their algorithm. I spent the next 3 months preparing. I was very, very careful. I'm a mathematician. Specifically, I study algorithms, sets of instructions that solve problems. In my field, elegance matters. An elegant algorithm is one that solves a complex problem with minimal steps, maximum efficiency, and no wasted motion. The Ashtons thought they had an elegant algorithm for disposing of me. They were wrong. Their algorithm had a flaw, a fatal one. They assumed I was passive, that I lacked resources, that 7 years of small humiliations had made me weak, dependent, afraid. They were right about some of that. I was afraid. I was financially dependent. I'd become smaller over the years, quieter, more careful about when I spoke and what I said and how much space I took up. But here's what they didn't know about mathematicians. We notice patterns. And once you notice a pattern, you can't unsee it. I'd been noticing patterns for years. I'd noticed how Victoria always seated me at the end of the table at family dinners, far from the conversation. I'd noticed how Robert asked about my salary every time we met, always with the same tone of amused contempt. I'd noticed how Charlotte had stopped introducing me as her husband and started introducing me as David, as if our relationship were a detail too minor to mention. I'd noticed how Melissa filmed everything constantly, and how those videos never included me unless I was doing something that could be mocked later. I'd noticed how Marcus apologized more than anyone should have to apologize for their family. I'd noticed how the apartment lease was in Charlotte's name only, how the car title was in Charlotte's name only, how our joint bank account wasn't actually joint. My name was on it, but I had no withdrawal authority above 500 without her approval. I'd noticed how I'd slowly been erased from my own life, and I'd started documenting. Not obviously, not in ways they'd notice. But I started keeping records. I kept emails. Every email Charlotte had ever sent me. Every text message. Every communication from any member of the Ashton family. I backed them up, encrypted them, stored them in 3 different cloud services under accounts they didn't know existed. I kept financial records. Every transaction, every time Charlotte loaned me money for something and then later reminded me I owed her. Every time the family paid for something and then sent me a bill. Every passive-aggressive Venmo request for my share of expenses. I kept notes, dates, times conversations, who said what, who was present, what the context was. I wrote them in a journal I kept at my office at the university, the one place I knew they'd never look because they'd never once visited me there. I kept photos, the apartment, the car, the documents that said everything was Charlotte's, my corner desk with my laptop and my books in the life I was allowed to have in the margins of her much larger life. And then, after I found that red folder, I started doing something else. I started really looking at the Ashton family business. Robert Ashton was a real estate developer. That's how he introduced himself at parties. Real estate developer. As if it were a profession that required only one definition. But the more I looked, the more interesting it became. The Ashton Group owned property all over the city. Residential buildings, commercial spaces, development projects. It was valued at somewhere around $400 million, though the exact number was hard to pin down because the company was private and the family was secretive. But I had access to things the average person didn't. I had access to Charlotte, or rather I had access to Charlotte's laptop, which she left open in the kitchen sometimes when she was taking phone calls. I had access to her passwords, which she kept in a note on her phone that she'd shown me once when she needed me to handle something while she was traveling. I had access to the home network, which I managed because no one else in the family understood how routers worked. And I had skills. People forget that computational mathematicians aren't just theorists. We code, we analyze data, we find patterns in noise. We're very, very good at accessing systems. I didn't hack anything. Let me be clear about that. I didn't need to. Charlotte had given me access years ago when she'd asked me to help her organize her files. I'd created a backup system for her so you never lose anything important. And she'd been grateful. She'd never thought to revoke that access. Over 3 months, I downloaded everything: financial records, tax returns, contracts, property deeds, development plans, email archives, meeting notes, board presentations, internal memos, legal documents, settlement agreements with tenants, building inspection reports, loan applications, insurance claims, everything. And as I read through it all, late at night while Charlotte slept, I started to see the pattern. The Ashton Group was a house of cards, not obviously, not in ways that would show up in a casual audit, but there were discrepancies, small ones at first, properties listed at one value on tax documents and another value on loan applications. Development projects that were funded through a maze of subsidiary companies and offshore accounts. Rental income that didn't quite match what the properties should have generated. Building code violations that had been settled quietly with payments that didn't appear in any official records. Nothing illegal, exactly, or at least nothing provably illegal without a full forensic accounting investigation. But enough to raise questions, enough to interest regulators, enough to make banks nervous, enough to cause serious problems if the right person asked the right questions at the right time. I compiled everything into a single file, organized it, created a timeline, drew connections between related documents, highlighted the inconsistencies, made it very, very clear what patterns existed and what they suggested. And then I made 3 copies. One I encrypted and stored in a secure cloud account under a pseudonym. One I put on a flash drive that I kept on me at all times. And one I sent to someone I trusted, Marcus. Charlotte's brother, the only member of the Ashton family who'd ever treated me like a human being, who'd apologized when his father made comments about my background, who'd asked about my research like it actually mattered, who'd told me once, late at night at a family gathering when he'd had too much wine, that he hated what his family had become. I sent Marcus an encrypted email from an anonymous account. I know you probably won't believe this is me, but it is. I found something about the family business, something I think you should know about before it becomes public knowledge. I'm sending you a file. Don't open it on a family device. Don't tell anyone you have it. Just keep it safe. You'll know when you need it. I didn't expect a response. I didn't get one. But I knew Marcus. He'd open it, he'd see what I saw, and he'd understand. That was 2 months before the restaurant. During those 2 months, I did something else. I started looking for a job. Not a better job, necessarily. Just a different one. Something far away. Something that paid enough to live on without anyone's charity. Something that would make me disappear from the Ashton's world completely. I found it at a research institute in Seattle, 3,000 miles away, a position working on quantum computing algorithms, salary of $120,000, twice what I made as an adjunct. Benefits, housing assistance, a fresh start. I applied, I interviewed over video, I got the offer, and I accepted. Start date, 2 weeks after my birthday. I didn't tell Charlotte, I didn't tell anyone. I just signed the contract, made my arrangements, and waited. I also did one more thing. I called a lawyer, not a family lawyer, not someone who worked in the same legal circles as the Ashton family attorneys. I found someone who specialized in complex divorces involving financial misconduct, someone who'd made their career out of representing people who'd been screwed over by wealthy spouses. Her name was Rebecca Torres. She was in her 50s, with short gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen everything and been impressed by none of it. She worked out of a small office in a part of town the Ashtons would never visit, and she charged $500 an hour, which was money I didn't have. I can't pay you right now, I told her in our first meeting, but if you help me with this, I will pay you every cent, even if it takes years. She looked at the documents I'd brought, the background check, the emails, the financial projections, the draft separation agreements. They investigated you before you got married, she said. Yes. And they've been planning to divorce you for years. Yes. And they're going to do it publicly. At a restaurant, on my birthday, with witnesses. She looked up at me. And you want to? I want to make sure I get what I'm entitled to, I said. Legally, fairly, no games, no intimidation, just what the law says I deserve. What you're entitled to from a marriage to someone whose family has $400 million. If that's what the law says, yes. She smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of someone who'd been waiting a long time to take on a case exactly like this. I'll take it, she said, and you don't pay me until we win. When we win. You're confident? Mr. Chen, she said, they did a background check on you before marriage and kept records of their intent to divorce you within a specific time frame. That's premeditation. That affects how a court will view the prenup. And if they are planning to do this publicly, with witnesses, filming you, that's emotional distress. That's exploitation. That's exactly the kind of behavior that makes judges very, very interested in the other party's conduct. So what do I do? You let them do exactly what they're planning to do, she said. You don't resist. You don't fight. You don't give them any reason to change their minds or delay. You take the papers. You say thank you. You walk out. And then you let me handle the rest. And they won't see it coming? Mr. Chen, she said, people like the Ashtons never see it coming. They're so used to winning that they forget there are rules. And rules, it turns out, apply to everyone. So that was my algorithm. Step 1, let them divorce me publicly. Step 2, document everything. Step 3, file a countersuit. Step 4, watch their house of cards collapse. Elegant, efficient, no wasted motion. And that's where I was when I walked into Lumiere on my 35th birthday and found the entire Ashton family waiting to give me my gift. I didn't go home that night. Home, the apartment, Charlotte's apartment, didn't feel like somewhere I belonged anymore. Not that it ever really had, But there had been a comfortable fiction that we'd both maintain. The fiction that we lived there together, that it was our space, that I had a right to be there beyond the grace of her tolerance. That fiction was over now. Instead, I went to a hotel, nothing fancy, a Holiday Inn near the university, $79 a night. The room smelled like industrial cleaning solution and had a painting of a lighthouse bolted to the wall, but it had a bed and a door that locked and no one inside who'd just handed me divorce papers at dinner. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled out my phone. 23 missed calls from Charlotte, 17 text messages, 6 voicemails. I listened to the voicemails. The first one was apologetic. David, please call me. I know that was awful. I know, but we should talk about this. Call me back. The second was more urgent. David, where are you? I'm worried. Just let me know you're okay. The third was annoyed. You're being childish. We need to discuss this like adults. I'm at the apartment. Come home. The fourth was angry. Fine, don't answer, but you need to sign those papers. The lawyer needs them by Monday. The fifth was Victoria. David, this is Charlotte's mother. I understand you're upset, but what's done is done. The sooner you sign those papers and accept the settlement, the sooner we can all move forward. There's no need to draw this out. The sixth was Marcus. Hey man, it's Marcus. Look, I'm sorry. I didn't know they were going to do it like that. Call me if you need anything. I mean it. I didn't call any of them back. Instead, I called Rebecca Torres. She answered on the second ring. Mr. Chen, I assume it happened? It happened. How did you handle it? Exactly like you said. I thanked them. I took the papers. I left. Good. And they recorded it? Charlotte's sister. On her phone, the whole thing. Even better. That video is going to be very useful. How are you feeling? I thought about it. How was I feeling? Light, I said. I feel light. That's normal. You've been carrying something heavy for a long time. Now you've set it down. The hard part comes next. What's the hard part? Not going back. She said. Not letting them convince you that you're wrong to feel hurt. Not accepting their version of events. Not signing those papers. I'm not going to sign. They're going to pressure you. They're going to call and text and show up places. They're going to tell you you're being unreasonable. They're going to offer you more money, then less money, then threaten you, then try to guilt you. They're going to use every tool they have to get you to do what they want. I know. Do you? Because this is when most people cave, when it gets uncomfortable, when the pressure builds, when they start to doubt themselves, when they think maybe it would just be easier to sign and walk away. I'm not going to cave. Promise me, she said. Promise me that no matter what they say or do, you'll call me before you sign anything, before you agree to anything, before you even respond to them. I promise. Good. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow we start building your case. I slept better that night than I had in months. The next morning, Charlotte was waiting in the hotel lobby. I saw her as I came down for breakfast. She was sitting in one of the lobby chairs, wearing jeans and a t-shirt. Her casual clothes, which still cost more than my entire wardrobe combined. No makeup, hair in a ponytail. She looked young, vulnerable, the way she used to look when we first met. She stood when she saw me. David, Charlotte, can we talk? How did you know I was here? You used the credit card for the room. The credit card, right. The one attached to our joint account. The one she had access to. The one she probably got an alert for every time I used it. Can we please just talk? I looked around the lobby. There were other guests, a family with kids, a businessman eating a Danish, a couple checking out, witnesses. Fine, I said, but not here, outside. We walked out to the parking lot. It was early, 7 a.m., and the sky was that particular shade of gray that meant rain later. Charlotte hugged herself against the cold. I'm sorry, she said. For which part? All of it. I'm sorry for all of it. The dinner, the way it happened, my family. I didn't want to do it like that. But you did do it like that. My mother insisted. She said it would be cleaner if we did it publicly, if we had witnesses. She said you'd be less likely to cause problems if you humiliated me in front of everyone. I didn't want to humiliate you. What did you think was going to happen, Charlotte? What did you think it would feel like for me to open an envelope at my birthday dinner and find divorce papers signed by your entire family? With your sister filming it? What emotion exactly were you hoping for? She looked at the ground. I don't know. Yes, you do. You wanted me to be grateful. You wanted me to say thank you and sign the papers and disappear quietly, just like the background check said I would. Non-threatening, manageable, easy to dispose of. Her head snapped up. What background check? The one your family did before we got married. The one where they assessed me like a risk factor and decided I was acceptable for a temporary arrangement. The one that recommended divorcing me within 5 to 7 years. The one I found 3 months ago in your office. Her face went pale. You went through my files? I was looking for a stapler. The folder fell out. I read it. All of it. Every page. Every email. Every calculation about when it would be most cost-effective to get rid of me. David, did you ever love me? I asked. Or was I always just, what? An experiment? A phase? Something to check off your list before you moved on to someone more appropriate? I did love you, she said quietly. I do love you. Then why are you divorcing me? Because it's not enough. The love isn't enough. We're too different. You have to see that. We want different things. We're going in different directions. You mean I'm not rich enough? It's not about money. It's always about money with your family. Everything is about money, about worth, about what things cost and who can afford them and who's earned the right to be in the room. I've spent 7 years being reminded that I don't belong. 7 years of your father asking about my salary. 7 years of your mother seating me at the end of the table. 7 years of your sister filming me like I'm some kind of performance art. 7 years of you apologizing for me, excusing me, explaining me away. That's not fair. None of this is fair, I said louder than I meant to. A couple getting into their car looked over. I lowered my voice. None of this is fair, but that's fine. I don't need fair. I just need to be done. Then sign the papers, Charlotte said. Sign them and take the settlement. Move on. Start over. Be free. I will be free, I said, but not on your terms. Her expression changed, hardened. There was her mother in her face suddenly, Victoria's cold calculation. What does that mean? It means I'm getting my own lawyer. You don't need a lawyer. The settlement is generous. It's a severance package, and it's insulting. $50,000 is insulting? For 7 years of marriage, yes. Especially when I'm giving up any claim to assets I helped build. You didn't build anything. You were teaching at a community college, university, and I managed our household. I organized your life. I edited your papers. I handled every administrative task you didn't want to deal with. I was your emotional support, your sounding board, your backup plan. That has value. We had a prenup, written by your family's lawyers, signed when I was 27 and stupid and in love, before I understood what I was signing, before I knew your family had investigated me and planned this from the beginning. That prenup is legal. Maybe, maybe not. That's for the courts to decide. Courts? Her voice went sharp. You're going to take this to court? If I have to. David, don't do this. Don't make this ugly. Your mother made it ugly when she decided to divorce me at a restaurant with witnesses and cameras. My mother doesn't speak for me. Doesn't she? You gave me a letter signed from all of us. You sat there while she slid those papers across the table. You let your sister film it. You didn't stop any of it. So yeah, she does speak for you. They all do. Charlotte's eyes were wet now. Real tears or performed tears. I couldn't tell anymore. I wanted to make this easy for you. By making it painful? By making it quick, like a Band-Aid. One sharp hurt, and then it's over and you can heal. I am healing, I said, just not the way you expected. What do you want from me? Nothing, I said. I don't want anything from you anymore. That's the whole point. Then why won't you just sign? Because I'm not going to let your family write the ending to this story. I'm not going to be the disposable poor professor who was grateful for the scraps and disappeared when dismissed. I'm not going to be the error they planned for in their algorithm. This isn't about algorithms. This is about our marriage. Our marriage was an algorithm. You just didn't show me the formula. She was crying now, actually crying. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you. I know my family hurt you. But please, David, please don't do this. Don't drag this out. Don't make it Dwight ugly. Just sign the papers. Take the money. Go live your life. Be happy. I will be happy, I said. But first, I'm going to be fair. I walked back toward the hotel lobby. David, she called after me. I stopped, turned. I did love you, she said. That part was real. Even if nothing else was, that part was real. I looked at her, at the woman I'd married, at the stranger she'd become, or maybe always was. I believe you, I said, but it doesn't change anything. I went back inside. She didn't follow. Rebecca Torres filed the countersuit 3 days later. It was 47 pages long. I know because I read every word before she submitted it. Twice. She'd written it in language that was simultaneously precise and devastating. Legal terminology that somehow conveyed both the facts of what happened and the weight of how it felt. The core argument was simple. The prenuptial agreement was invalid. Not entirely invalid. Rebecca was too smart to claim that, but compromised, tainted, signed under conditions that made it unenforceable in its current form. The background check was Exhibit A. The family had investigated me, assessed my financial vulnerability, and used that information to craft an agreement that maximized their protection and minimized my rights. They'd known I couldn't afford a lawyer to review it properly. They'd known I was dependent on Charlotte financially by the time we got engaged. They'd used that knowledge deliberately. That was unconscionable. That was the legal term. The agreement was unconscionable because it was signed when the parties had grossly unequal bargaining power and the stronger party had taken advantage of that inequality. The emails were Exhibit B. Charlotte's correspondence with her family showed a pattern of intent to divorce that predated our marriage. They'd discussed timelines. They'd planned for my disposal. They'd treated our marriage as a temporary arrangement that would end on their schedule, not through any fault or change in circumstance, but simply because they'd decided I'd serve my purpose. That went to the question of good faith. You can't enter a marriage planning to divorce someone and then enforce a prenup as if the marriage were a legitimate partnership. Not under California law. The public nature of the divorce was Exhibit C, the restaurant, the witnesses, the filming, the humiliation. That demonstrated a pattern of emotional abuse and financial manipulation. It showed that the family didn't view me as a person with rights, but as an employee being terminated. And then Rebecca did something brilliant. She didn't ask for a specific dollar amount. She asked for discovery. She asked the court to compel the Ashton family to produce their financial records. All of them. Personal and business. Going back 10 years, tax returns, property holdings, business dealings, assets, liabilities, income streams, everything. Because if we were going to determine what I was entitled to from the marriage, we needed to know what actually existed. And if the Ashtons wanted to claim that the prenup protected all their assets, they needed to prove those assets were legitimate in the first place. The filing hit the court system on a Wednesday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Chen? The voice was male, cultured, expensive. This is Martin Blackwood. I'm the senior partner at Blackwood & Associates. We represent the Ashton family. I know who you are, I said. I was in my hotel room. I checked out of the Holiday Inn and into a longer-term rental situation, a furnished apartment near the university. Cheaper, more private, somewhere I could stay while this played out. Then you know we're very good at what we do, Martin said. And what we do is protect our clients from frivolous lawsuits. Is that what this is? Frivolous? Completely. You signed a prenuptial agreement. It's valid, it's enforceable, and you're wasting everyone's time, including yours, by contesting it. Your clients investigated me before marriage and kept records of their plan to divorce me. That affects the validity of the agreement. That's a creative legal theory. It won't hold up in court. Then I guess we'll find out. Mr. Chen, his tone changed, became warmer, more reasonable. Let me be direct with you. The Ashtons are willing to increase their settlement offer, not because they owe you anything, but because they value their privacy and would prefer to resolve this quietly. They're prepared to offer you $150,000, triple the original amount. That's a very generous sum for a 7-year marriage, especially given that you contributed no assets. I contributed 7 years, and you'll be compensated for that. $150,000 is more than fair. What about the emotional distress of being divorced publicly? On my birthday? While being filmed? That's a separate issue, and frankly, it's not actionable. No one forced you to attend that dinner. No one held you hostage. You were free to leave at any time. I was free to leave my own birthday dinner where my wife's family served me divorce papers. You're being dramatic. I'm being accurate. Martin sighed. Mr. Chen, I'm going to give you some advice. Take it or leave it. You cannot win this case. The prenup is solid. Our firm drafted it. We've never lost a prenuptial challenge in 23 years. You're going to spend money you don't have on legal fees, drag this out for months or years, and ultimately end up with nothing. Or worse, you'll end up owing us money for our legal costs when the judge rules in our favor. Is that really what you want? What I want, I said, is discovery. I want to see the Ashton family's financial records. All of them. There was a pause. When Martin spoke again, his voice was colder. Why? Because I'm entitled to know what I'm claiming a share of. You're not entitled to anything beyond what the prenup specifies. Then there's nothing to hide, is there? Produce the records. Let's see what we're working with. Unless there's a reason you don't want those records examined? Another pause. Longer this time. This conversation is over, Martin said. But I'll give you one more piece of advice. Drop this suit. Take the $150,000. Walk away. Because if you don't, we will bury you. Financially, legally, personally. We will make your life so difficult that you'll wish you'd never heard the name Ashton. Do you understand me? I understand that you're very scared of discovery, I said. Thank you for clarifying that. He hung up. I sat in my empty apartment, holding the phone, feeling the adrenaline spike and fade. They'd offered me triple the original amount, which meant they were worried, which meant Rebecca was right, which meant we were on the right track. I called her and told her about the conversation. He threatened to bury you, she said. Good. Good? It means we hit a nerve. If they weren't worried, they'd be ignoring this. Instead, they're offering you more money and making threats. That's the behavior of people who know they're exposed. What do? We wait. They'll file a response to our discovery request. They'll try to limit it, narrow it, delay it, but they'll have to provide something. And once we start seeing their records, we'll know what we're really dealing with. And if their records are clean, they won't be, Rebecca said confidently. People with that much money never have completely clean records. There's always something, a questionable deduction, a property valued wrong, a loan that doesn't quite make sense. And if I can find one thing, I can find more. It's like pulling a thread. And then what? Then we negotiate from a position of strength instead of weakness. Then we get you what you're actually owed, which is, honestly, I'm thinking somewhere between $2 and $5 million, depending on what we find and how badly they want this to go away. I laughed. I couldn't help it. $2 million? They offered me $50,000 originally. That's because they thought you didn't know better. Now they know you do. Everything changes. Over the next 2 weeks, the following things happened. Charlotte called me 14 times. I didn't answer. Victoria sent me a letter via certified mail explaining in patronizing detail why I was making a mistake and urging me to reconsider my rash decision before permanent damage is done to all parties. Melissa posted a video on her private Instagram story about toxic people who refuse to move on gracefully. I knew because someone screenshotted it and sent it to me. Marcus texted me, I think you're doing the right thing. Don't let them bully you. Robert's office called my university and tried to get me fired by suggesting I'd stolen Charlotte's research. It didn't work because A, I hadn't, and B, The university didn't appreciate attempted interference from external sources. Martin Blackwood filed a motion to dismiss my countersuit and limit discovery to only the last 3 years of marriage. Rebecca filed a response arguing that the entire marriage was relevant because the entire marriage had been planned and documented by the Ashtons. The judge scheduled a hearing for 6 weeks out. And then something unexpected happened. Marcus showed up at my apartment. I almost didn't let him in. He knocked on a Tuesday evening while I was grading papers. Yes, I was still teaching, still showing up to my adjunct position, still maintaining some semblance of normal life while my marriage imploded in slow motion. I looked through the peephole and saw him standing there, hands in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. I opened the door. "Marcus?" "Hey." He looked past me into the small apartment. "Can I come in?" I hesitated, then stepped aside. He entered, taking in the space with a single, sweeping glance. 1 bedroom, barely furnished. My laptop on a folding table, a mattress on the floor because I hadn't bought a bed frame yet, books stacked everywhere. It probably looked like poverty to him. It looked like freedom to me. "Nice place," he said, and to his credit, he sounded like he meant it. "It's temporary," I said. "What are you doing here?" "I wanted to check on you, see how you're doing." "I'm fine. Are you?" "Better than expected," I said. "Want something to drink?" "I have water." "And water," he smiled. "Water's fine." I poured us both glasses from the tap. We sat on the only 2 chairs I own, folding metal things I'd bought at Target for $15 each. "So," Marcus said, "you're really doing this? The lawsuit?" "I am." "And you know they're going to fight you with everything they have?" "I do." He nodded slowly. "Good, because they will. My father doesn't lose. It's not in his nature. He'll spend $10 million to avoid paying you $1 million, just to prove a point." "I know." "Do you? Because I'm not sure you understand what you're up against. This isn't just about money or legal rights or fair compensation. This is about control, about power, about maintaining the family narrative. You're threatening that. They won't forgive it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. What are you asking for? Justice? Compensation? Acknowledgement that I wasn't just a temporary employee who served his purpose and should be grateful for the severance package." Marcus took a drink of water, set the glass down. "I read the file you sent me." I went very still. "Yeah?" "The financial records, the discrepancies, the patterns you flagged. And you're right about all of it. The properties are overvalued on loan applications and undervalued on tax returns. The subsidiary companies are shell games. The rental income is being funneled through offshore accounts. Some of the building code violations were settled with cash payments that never got reported. There's even a property in San Diego that's listed as a commercial development but is actually sitting empty while my father collects insurance payments for lost revenue. It's not technically illegal, most of it, but it's close, really close. And if the wrong people started asking questions, the house of cards collapses," I finished. "Exactly." He looked at me with something that might have been respect. "How did you find all this?" "I'm a mathematician. I see patterns. And Charlotte gave you access to everything. She didn't think I'd look." "She didn't think you'd understand," Marcus corrected. "She thought you were smart in the theoretical way, not in the practical way, not in the way that matters." "Is that what you think?" "I think you're the smartest person who's ever been involved with this family, and I think we're all idiots for underestimating you." We sat in silence for a moment. "Why are you here, Marcus?" I asked finally. "Because I want to help you." "Why?" "Because what they did to you was wrong. The background check, the planning, the public humiliation, all of it. It was cruel and calculated and wrong, and because—" He paused. "Because I'm tired of being part of a family that treats people like assets to be managed." "So help me," I said. "Testify on. Tell the court what you know." "I can't do that. If I testify against my family, I'm cut off. Completely. Trust fund gone. Job gone. I work for the company, remember? Apartment gone. They own it. Everything gone. I'd be exactly where you are right now." And that's so terrible? He looked around the apartment, at my folding chairs and stacked books and mattress on the floor. No, he said quietly. Maybe it's not, but I'm not as brave as you. I'm not brave, I'm just not out of options. That's what brave looks like sometimes. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket. I can't testify, but I can give you this. What is it? Additional records, stuff that wasn't in the file you compiled, meeting notes from board discussions about the development projects, emails between my father and his accountants about the offshore accounts, documents that show premeditation on the financial manipulations. It's everything you need to prove the pattern. I took the envelope. It was thick, heavy. If they find out you gave me this, they won't. I was careful. And even if they do, I'll deny it. I'll say you must have hacked my computer or something. They'll believe it. They already think you're capable of anything. Am I? He smiled. I'm starting to think so. He stood. I should go. If I'm gone too long, they'll ask questions. I walked him to the door. Marcus, thank you. Don't thank me yet. This is going to get worse before it gets better. They're going to offer you more money. Then they're going to threaten you more seriously. Then they're going to try to destroy you. And through all of it, they're going to tell themselves they're the victims, that you're the villain, that they did nothing wrong. I can handle it. I believe you. He stepped into the hallway, then turned back. For what it's worth, I liked you. I always liked you. I thought you were good for Charlotte. I thought you made her better. Les, Ashton. What happened? She chose them, Marcus said simply. She always does. It's easier than choosing herself. He left. I closed the door and sat back down with the envelope. Inside were documents that would make Rebecca very, very happy and make the Ashtons very, very nervous. I spent that night reading through everything Marcus had given me, taking notes, cross-referencing with what I already had, building the picture. The Ashton group wasn't just cutting corners. They were running an elaborate scheme to minimize tax obligations while maximizing borrowing power. They'd created a network of subsidiary companies that existed primarily on paper, shifting assets and liabilities between them to create whatever financial picture they needed for whoever was looking. It was sophisticated, it was carefully constructed, and it was probably legal until you looked at all the pieces together and saw the pattern. That's what regulators would see if someone brought this to their attention. That's what banks would see if someone made them look closely at the loan applications. That's what the IRS would see if someone filed a complaint, and that's what a judge would see if this ended up in court. I called Rebecca. She came over. I spread the documents across my foldings table. She read them while I made terrible coffee on the hot plate I'd bought because the apartment didn't have a coffee maker. Holy shit, she said finally. Is it enough? It's more than enough. David, this isn't just about your divorce anymore. This is potential fraud, tax evasion, bank fraud. If we bring this into your case, we're not just asking for a fair settlement. We're threatening to expose decades of financial misconduct. Good. Good? She looked up at me. Do you understand what you're doing? You're not just taking on a wealthy family. You're potentially destroying them. They tried to destroy me first. They tried to divorce you. You're talking about criminal charges, federal investigations, the end of their business, the end of everything they've built. Everything they've built on lies, I said. Everything they've built by cheating the system and treating people as disposable. Yeah, I understand what I'm doing. She studied me. You're angrier than I thought. I'm not angry. I'm done being small. There's no going back from this. You know that, right? If we use this information, if we threaten to expose them, they'll never forgive you. Charlotte will never forgive you. You'll never be able to reconcile, never be able to go back to how things were. I don't want to go back to how things were. How things were was me being grateful for scraps from a table I helped set. Rebecca nodded slowly. Okay, then we use this, all of it. We file an amended complaint that includes the financial misconduct. We threaten to share this information with regulators if they don't settle fairly. and we watch them choose between their pride and their freedom. They'll settle? They'll settle, she said confidently, because people like the Ashtons always settle. They can't risk exposure, can't risk public scrutiny, can't risk anyone looking too closely at how they actually make their money. What's fair? I asked. What should I ask for? Everything, Rebecca said. You ask for everything, and then you negotiate down to what you're actually owed. The amended complaint was filed on a Thursday. By Friday morning, Martin Blackwood called, not to threaten this time, to negotiate. Mr. Chen, he said, and his voice was different, respectful, careful. I've reviewed your amended filing, and I think we should talk in person. Would you be available to meet next week? Why? Because my clients are interested in resolving this matter expeditiously and amicably. Amicably, that's an interesting word considering how this started. Mr. Chen, I understand you're angry. I'm not angry, I said. I was in my apartment. It was 7 a.m. I'd been awake since 5, unable to sleep, running through scenarios and outcomes and possibilities. I'm just done pretending. Then let's stop pretending. My clients made a mistake. Several mistakes, in fact. The way the divorce was handled was inappropriate. The settlement offer was inadequate. They recognize that now. They'd like to make it right. How much? I'd prefer to discuss that in person, with both legal teams present. Next Tuesday, if that works for you, Musha. I looked at the calendar on my phone. Tuesday was 6 days away. Fine, where? Our offices, 2 o'clock. Your offices? No. Neutral ground and no. A pause. The courthouse conference rooms then, 2nd floor, 2 o'clock. I'll be there. I hung up and called Rebecca. They want to settle, I told her. Already? That was fast. Is it? We filed yesterday, David. I expected at least 2 weeks of posturing before they'd even consider talking. The fact that they're asking to meet next Tuesday means they're very, very nervous about what's in that amended complaint. The financial records. Exactly. They know if this goes to discovery, if we start deposing people, if we bring in forensic accountants, they're exposed. They can't let that happen. So we have leverage. We have all the leverage. The question is how much you want. I thought about it, about the 7 years, about the background check, about the dinner, about the way they'd made me feel, small, disposable, grateful for scraps for so long. I want them to admit what they did, I said. That's not going to happen. They'll never admit wrongdoing. That's negotiation 101. Then I want them to pay like they did something wrong. Now we're talking, Rebecca said. Here's what I'm thinking. We asked for $10 million. 10, I know it sounds insane, but hear me out. You were married for 7 years. In California, that's a long-term marriage. You're entitled to spousal support. You're entitled to half of any assets acquired during the marriage. And given that the prenup is compromised, we can argue that everything is on the table, plus damages for emotional distress, plus compensation for the economic harm of being divorced publicly, which affects your future earning potential and reputation. How does my reputation affect my earning potential? You're a professor. Your reputation is your earning potential. And they filmed you being humiliated. They made you a spectacle. That has value, negative value, which they owe you for. They'll never pay $10 million. No, Rebecca agreed. They won't. They'll counter with something much lower, maybe $500,000, maybe $1 million. And then we negotiate back and forth until we land somewhere between $3 and $5 million, which is what you're actually worth. You think I'm worth $5 million? I think 7 years of your life is worth $5 million. I think being investigated and documented and planned for like a business expense is worth $5 million. I think being divorced at dinner on your birthday while being filmed, it is worth $5 million. Don't you? I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know what I'm worth. I've spent so long being told I'm worthless. Then let me tell you what you're worth, Rebecca said firmly. You're worth whatever they're willing to pay to make this go away. And based on what's in that amended complaint, I think they're willing to pay a lot. The weekend passed slowly. Charlotte called twice. I didn't answer. She left voicemails. David, please, we need to talk. This has gone too far. What you're threatening, it's not just about me. It's about my whole family. My father could go to jail. The business could collapse. People could lose their bus. Is that really what you want? Is your pride worth destroying everything? And later, I know you're hurt. I know I hurt you, but this isn't the answer. This isn't justice. This is revenge. And it's making you into someone you're not. Please call me back. Please. I didn't call back. Instead, I went to the university. I taught my classes. I held office hours. I graded papers. I did the work I was paid to do, the work that had value beyond what the Ashtons acknowledged. One of my students, a grad student named Priya, who was working on machine learning algorithms, stayed after class. Professor Chen, can I ask you something personal? You can ask, I said. I might not answer. Are you okay? You seem different lately? Different how? Lighter, she said, like something heavy fell off. I smiled. Yeah, something did. Good, she said. You seem more like yourself. After she left, I sat in my office, my small, cluttered office with its stacks of papers and whiteboards covered in equations, and thought about that. More like myself. Who was myself? I'd been David Chen, Charlotte Ashton's husband, for so long that I'd forgotten who David Chen was without that qualifier. I'd shaped myself around her life, her family, her expectations. I'd made myself smaller so she could be bigger. I'd apologized for existing in ways that inconvenienced them. I didn't want to do that anymore. Tuesday arrived. Rebecca and I met outside the courthouse at 1:45. She was wearing a navy suit that screamed competence and contained confidence. I was wearing the same suit Charlotte had bought me, the one I'd worn to the restaurant, because it was still the best suit I owned, and I wanted to remind them of that night. Ready? Rebecca asked. Ready. We went inside. The conference room was bland. White walls, long table, uncomfortable chairs, fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly ill. Martin Blackwood was already there, along with 2 associates and a woman I didn't recognize. Mr. Chen, Martin said, standing. Thank you for coming. Who's she? I asked, nodding at the woman. This is Jennifer Walsh. She's a mediator. We thought it would be helpful to have a neutral party facilitate. No, Rebecca said immediately. We didn't agree to a mediator. It's standard practice in high-conflict divorces. This isn't a high-conflict divorce, Rebecca said. This is a case of documented premeditation to divorce, financial misconduct, and emotional abuse. We don't need a mediator. We need your client to make a serious offer. Martin and Rebecca stared at each other. The mediator gathered her things quietly and left. We all sat. Let's begin, Martin said. My clients recognize that the initial settlement offer was insufficient. They're prepared to increase that offer substantially. They're offering $2 million, paid out over 5 years, in exchange for a full release of all claims in a comprehensive NDA. No, Rebecca said. You haven't heard the full terms. I don't need to hear the full terms. $2 million over 5 years with an NDA is insulting. We're asking for $10 million, immediate payment, no NDA, and a written acknowledgement of fault. One of the associates actually laughed. That's absurd. What's absurd, Rebecca said, is that your clients investigated my client before marriage, documented their intent to divorce him within a specific time frame, executed that divorce publicly and humiliatingly, and now want to pay him less than they'd pay a mid-level employee they were laying off. The prenuptial agreement is invalid. We've covered this. But let's talk about something else. Let's talk about the Ashton Group's financial practices. The property valuations that change depending on who's looking, the subsidiary companies that exist only on paper, the offshore accounts, the unreported cash settlements. Should we talk about those? Martin's face went very still. I don't know what you're referring to. Yes, you do. You drafted the documents for half those transactions. You set up the subsidiary companies. You've been advising the Ashtons on how to minimize their tax burden and maximize their borrowing power for 20 years. You know exactly what I'm referring to. Those are legitimate business practices. Then there's nothing to worry about, is there? If everything is legitimate, you should have no problem with discovery, no problem with forensic accountants, No problem with us sharing what we found with the appropriate regulators. That's blackmail, one of the associates said. No, Rebecca said calmly. Blackmail is when you threaten to reveal something unless someone pays you. What I'm doing is informing you that if this case goes to discovery, certain information will become part of the public record. That's not blackmail. That's consequence. Silence. $5 million, Martin said finally. Immediate payment, standard NDA, no admission of fault. $8 million, Rebecca countered. Immediate payment, limited NDA that only covers the financial information, not the circumstances of the divorce. Written statement that the initial settlement offer was inadequate and the circumstances of the divorce were handled inappropriately. $6 million, standard NDA, no written statement. $7 million, limited NDA, written statement. They went back and forth for 2 hours. I sat there listening to them negotiate my worth in millions of dollars. It was surreal, dreamlike. 3 months ago, I'd been grateful for the occasional dinner out. Now they were arguing about whether I deserved $7 or $8 million. Finally, they reached an agreement. $6.5 million, immediate payment minus taxes. Limited NDA that prevented me from disclosing specific financial information about the Ashton Group, but did not prevent me from discussing the circumstances of my divorce. And a written statement, not an admission of fault, but an acknowledgement that the dissolution of the marriage was handled in a manner that caused unnecessary distress to both parties. It was less than I'd asked for. It was more than I'd ever imagined having. We'll draft the settlement agreement, Martin said. You'll have it by Friday for review. We'll review it thoroughly, Rebecca said. If everything is as discussed, we can execute it next week. There's one more condition, Martin said. What? Charlotte wants to see him, to talk to him before this is finalized. Absolutely not, Rebecca said. She's entitled to nothing. She had 7 years to talk to him. She chose to do it at a restaurant on his birthday with her family and a camera. She doesn't get a private conversation now. I'll do it, I said. Rebecca turned to me. David, I'll do it, I repeated. If she wants to talk, I'll talk to her. Once, alone. No lawyers, no family, just us. That's a bad idea. Maybe, but I want to hear what she has to say. Rebecca looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. Fine, but not until after the settlement is signed. I don't want her trying to manipulate you into changing the terms. Agreed, Martin said. We left the courthouse. On the steps, Rebecca turned to me. You did it. You actually did it. We did it. $6.5 million, David. That's life-changing money. It is, I said. But I didn't feel different. Didn't feel rich or vindicated or even particularly happy. I just felt complete, like I'd solved a problem that had been unsolved for a very long time. What happens now? Now we wait for the paperwork. Review it carefully. Make sure there are no last-minute surprises. Sign it. And then you get your money and you never have to think about the Ashtons again. What about the financial information, the records Marcus gave me? What about them? Do we turn them over to regulators? Rebecca was quiet for a moment. That's your decision. Legally, you don't have to. The NDA covers you disclosing it publicly, but it doesn't prevent you from filing a complaint with appropriate authorities. But if you do, they'll know it came from you, and they'll find a way to retaliate. They might not be able to touch your settlement. That's protected once it's signed, but they can make your life difficult in other ways. Reputation, future employment, they have resources. So I just let it go, let them keep cheating the system? I didn't say that. I said it's your decision. If you think it's worth the risk, if you think it's important enough to potentially sacrifice your peace for, then you should do it. But I want you to go in with your eyes open. I thought about it, about the houses built on questionable foundations, the businesses that existed only on paper, the taxes not paid, the regulations not followed, about whether any of that was really my problem anymore. I'll think about it, I said. The settlement agreement arrived on Friday as promised. It was 63 pages long. I read every word. Rebecca read every word. We found nothing wrong. On Monday, I signed it. On Tuesday, the money appeared in my bank account. $6,500,000. Minus taxes and Rebecca's fee, I netted approximately $4.2 million. It was the most money I'd ever seen. It was also the strangest thing I'd ever felt. I'd expected relief, joy, vindication. Instead, I felt empty. Not sad empty, just clear. Like a room that's been cluttered for years, and suddenly everything has been removed, and you can see the shape of the space for the first time. I called Charlotte. She answered immediately. "David, you wanted to talk," I said. "Let's talk." We met at a coffee shop, not the one where we'd first met. That felt too symbolic, too loaded with nostalgia that neither of us deserved to invoke. This was a different place, neutral territory. A Starbucks near the university, busy enough that we wouldn't be overheard, but public enough that nothing dramatic could happen. Charlotte was already there when I arrived. She looked tired, no makeup, hair pulled back. She was wearing jeans and a sweater I remembered buying her for Christmas 3 years ago. She'd said she loved it, and I'd never seen her wear it until today. "Hi," she said. "Hi." I got coffee. She already had tea. We sat at a table in the back corner. For a minute, neither of us spoke. "So," she said finally, "you won." "Did I?" "You got your money, more than we ever thought you'd get. My father's lawyers said it was the worst negotiation outcome they'd had in a decade." "I'm sorry your father's lawyers are disappointed." She almost smiled. "Don't be. They charge him enough. They can handle a loss." She wrapped her hands around her tea. I wanted to say I'm sorry, really actually sorry, not the performative apology I gave you at the hotel, not the "I'm sorry you're upset" kind of sorry. I mean, I'm sorry for what I did, for how I did it, for all of it. "Okay. That's it? Just okay?" "What do you want me to say, Charlotte? That I forgive you? That it's all fine now? That we can be friends?" "I don't know what I want," she said. "I guess I wanted you to yell at me, to tell me I'm a terrible person, to make me feel as bad as I made you feel." "I'm not interested in making you feel bad. I'm just interested in moving on." "To Seattle," she said. I blinked. "How do you know about Seattle?" "I have my ways." She saw my expression. "I'm kidding. Marcus told me. He said you have a new job. Some kind of research position?" "Quantum computing algorithms." "That sounds very you." "It is very me. It's the job I should have taken years ago but didn't because I was trying to be the person you needed me to be." She flinched. "I never asked you to be someone else." "You didn't have to ask. The expectation was always there. Be less academic. Be more social. Be less passionate about your work. Be more interested in mine. Be less you. Be more compatible with the family." "That's not fair." "None of this is fair," I said, "but it's accurate." She was quiet for a moment. "Did you really love me, or was that just something you told yourself?" "I loved you," I said, "completely. Probably longer than I should have. But yeah, I loved you." Past tense, past tense. "I loved you too," she said. "I know you don't believe that. I know after everything, the background check, the planning, the way we ended things, you probably think it was all fake. But it wasn't. At least not for me. I really did love you. Just not enough." "Just not enough," she agreed. "Not enough to stand up to my family. Not enough to walk away from my life. Not enough to choose you over everything else." "Was there ever a moment when you thought about choosing me?" She thought about it. Really thought about it. "Yes," she said finally. "The first time my mother made a comment about your salary. We were engaged. We were at dinner. She asked what you made and you told her, and she laughed. Actually laughed. Like it was the funniest thing she'd ever heard. And I saw your face. I saw how much it hurt. And I thought, I should say something. I should defend him. I should tell her that's inappropriate and cruel and none of her business. But you didn't. But I didn't. I laughed too. Not as loud, not as mean, but I laughed. Because it was easier. Because standing up to my mother meant acknowledging that her values were wrong. And if her values were wrong, then maybe my values were wrong. And if my values were wrong, then who was I? You were my fiancée. "I was Victoria Ashton's daughter," she corrected. "That's who I've always been. That's who I chose to be. And I'm sorry that wasn't enough for you, but it's the truth. I took a sip of my coffee. It was too hot. I drank it anyway. Why did you marry me? I asked. If you knew it wasn't going to last, if your family had already investigated me and planned for my disposal, why go through with it? Because I wanted to believe it could work, she said. I wanted to believe I could be different, that I could make my own choices, that I could love someone my family didn't approve of and make it work anyway. She paused. And because you made me feel normal, like I wasn't just Charlotte Ashton, trust fund baby. Like I was a person with ideas and interests that mattered beyond my bank account. You're a person with ideas and interests. Am I? Or am I just a collection of expensive educations and carefully cultivated hobbies? I don't know anymore. I don't know if I'm Bernu. That's the saddest thing you've ever said to me. It's the saddest thing I've ever admitted to myself. We sat in silence for a while. Around us, the coffee shop continued its normal rhythm. Students studying, people working on laptops, couples talking, life going on, indifferent to our drama. What are you going to do with the money? Charlotte asked. I don't know yet. Pay off my student loans, buy a car that's actually mine, set myself up in Seattle, save the rest, invest it, not spend it on things I don't need just to prove I can. That's very you. Is it? Yes. Practical, careful, thoughtful. You were always good at thinking long term. I had to be. I couldn't afford not to be. She looked down at her tea. I'm going to therapy. Good. My therapist says I have an enmeshment problem with my family, that I don't have clear boundaries between what I want and what they want, that I need to develop a separate sense of self. Your therapist is right. I know, it's embarrassing. I'm 32 years old and I'm just now learning how to be a person separate from my family. Better late than never. Is it? Because it feels pretty late. I feel like I've wasted my 20s being someone's daughter, and my 30s being someone's wife, and I don't know who I am without those roles. Then maybe this is your chance to find out. She looked up at me. Do you think I'm a bad person? No. Really? Really, I think you're a person who made bad choices. But you're not bad. Bad people don't go to therapy. Bad people don't apologize. Bad people don't sit in Starbucks looking miserable because they hurt someone they loved. I did hurt you, though. A lot. Yeah, you did. And you can't forgive me. I didn't say that. But you can't, she pressed. Can you? I thought about it. Really thought about it. Could I forgive her? Could I forgive the background check I wasn't supposed to know about? The planning, the timeline, the public divorce, the filming, the entire architecture of calculated cruelty that had led to that moment in the restaurant? Could I forgive 7 years of being made to feel like I wasn't quite enough, of being managed and tolerated and ultimately disposed of? I don't know, I said honestly. Ask me in a year. Maybe I'll have an answer then. That's fair. She finished her tea, set down the cup. I hope you're happy in Seattle. I hope you get everything you wanted. I hope your research is brilliant and your life is full and you never have to think about the Ashtons again. What about you? What are you going to do? I don't know. Stay in the city, probably work on myself. Try to figure out who Charlotte is when she's not performing for her family. Maybe date someone my mother doesn't approve of. Maybe get a job doing something she thinks is beneath me. Maybe make my own terrible decisions instead of executing hers. That sounds like a plan. It's a start. She stood. I stood. We faced each other awkwardly. Can I hug you? I don't think that's a good idea. Right, of course. Too much. It's not about too much. It's just done. We're done. And hugging pretends we're something we're not anymore. What are we? People who used to be married, who hurt each other, who are trying to move on. She nodded, her eyes were wet. Goodbye, David. Goodbye, Charlotte. She walked away. I watched her leave, and I felt nothing, not satisfaction, not victory, not vindication, just the absence of weight, like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that I'd stopped noticing it. And now it was gone, and I could stand up straight again. I finished my coffee. I walked outside. The sun was shining. I got in my car, the new car I'd bought with my settlement money, nothing fancy, just something reliable that was actually mine, and drove back to my apartment. And for the first time in 7 years, I felt free. 3 days later, I was sitting in my apartment with the red folder, not the original. Marcus had that. But I'd kept copies of everything, the financial records, the property valuations, the offshore accounts, the pattern of misconduct that stretched back decades. My phone rang. Rebecca. Just checking in, she said. How are you doing? Good. Packing. The movers come next week. Excited about Seattle? More than I thought I'd be. It feels like an actual fresh start. Not just moving to a new place, but moving to a new life. You've earned it. A pause. Have you thought about what we discussed, about the financial information? I have. And I looked at the folder, at the evidence of years of financial manipulation, of rules bent and broken, of a family that believed they were above consequence because they'd never faced consequence. What happens if I turn it over? I asked. Realistically? Realistically, the IRS investigates. The SEC investigates if there are securities violations. The banks review their loan agreements. The Ashtons hire very expensive lawyers and try to minimize the damage. Some of it might be explained away as aggressive, but legal tax planning. Some of it might result in fines. Some of it, the more egregious stuff, might result in criminal charges. Against who? Robert primarily. He's the principal of the company. Maybe some of the executives. Maybe Martin Blackwood, if he knowingly facilitated fraud. It depends on what the investigation finds. What about Charlotte? Charlotte was never involved in the business operations. She's not at risk. Marcus? Same. He works for the company but doesn't make decisions. He'd probably have to testify, which would be uncomfortable, but he's not criminally liable. So I'd be destroying Robert's life. You'd be holding him accountable, Rebecca corrected. There's a difference. Is there? Yes, destroying his life would be fabricating evidence or making false accusations. Holding him accountable is providing truthful information about his conduct to appropriate authorities. That's not destruction. That's consequence. I walked to the window, looked out at the city, this city that had never quite felt like mine, but had been home for 7 years anyway. He'll know it came from me, I said. Probably. He'll retaliate. Maybe, but how? Your settlement is protected. You're moving 3,000 miles away. You're changing jobs. What can he actually do to you? Reputation. He can tell people I'm vindictive, that I destroyed his family for money. People who matter won't believe that, and people who believe that don't matter. That's a nice saying. It's also true. I thought about the dinner, about Victoria sliding the envelope across the table, about Melissa filming my reaction, about Charlotte sitting silent while her family dismantled my life like it was a puzzle they'd grown bored of. I thought about the background check, the timeline, the planning, the calculation. I thought about 7 years of being made small, and I thought about who I wanted to be going forward. Did I want to be the person who held grudges, who punished people years after the fact, who used information as a weapon? Or did I want to be the person who'd survived, who'd fought for himself, who'd won, and who could now walk away clean? I'm not going to do it, I said. What? I'm not going to turn over the information. I'm not going to report them. David, I know what you're thinking, that they deserve it, that justice should be served, that people who cheat the system should face consequences. And you're right, but I'm not the person who needs to deliver those consequences. Then who is? Anyone but me. If the authorities want to investigate the Ashtons, they can do it on their own. If regulators want to look at their financial practices, they can do it without my help. But I'm done. I got what I came for. I got my settlement. I got my dignity back. I got my life back. That's enough. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Are you sure? I'm sure. Because once you leave, once you move to Seattle and start your new job and build your new life, you can't change your mind. The evidence will get stale. The timeline will matter less. If you're going to act, It needs to be now. I know, and I'm choosing not to act. I'm choosing to let it go. Why? Because holding on to this, keeping these records, waiting for the right moment to destroy them, that keeps me tied to them. It makes them part of my story forever. The professor who brought down the Ashton Empire. That's not who I want to be. Who do you want to be? Someone who moved on. Someone who built something new. Someone who doesn't define himself by what he survived, but by what he created after. That's very healthy and well-adjusted of you. I'm trying something new. What about justice? What about it? You're just going to let them get away with it? I'm going to let them live with it, I said. I'm going to let Robert lie awake at night, wondering if I turned over those files. I'm going to let Victoria spend the rest of her life knowing her plan failed. I'm going to let Charlotte wonder what her life would have been like if she'd chosen differently. That's my revenge. Uncertainty. Guilt. The knowledge that they underestimated me and it cost them millions of dollars and their sense of control. That's actually pretty good revenge. I learned from the best. Who? You. You showed me how to be strategic instead of emotional. How to plan instead of react. How to win on my own terms. I like that, Rebecca said. Winning on your own terms. That's a good way to think about it. So we're done, officially? Officially, unless they violate the settlement agreement somehow, but I don't think they will. They're too scared of what you might do. Good. David? Yeah? I'm proud of you for all of it, for fighting, for winning, for walking away. That takes more strength than most people have. Thank you for everything. I couldn't have done this without you. Sure you could have, you just would have done it differently, probably less profitably. I laughed. Probably. After we hung up, I took the red folder to the shredder I'd bought for exactly this purpose. I fed in the pages one at a time. The financial records, the property valuations, the offshore accounts, the meeting notes, the emails, the evidence of years of misconduct, all of it. I watched it turn into confetti, and then I threw the confetti away. I kept only one thing, the background check, the original document that had started all of this. The assessment of David Chen as suitable temporary match and non-threatening. I folded it carefully and put it in my wallet, not as evidence, as a reminder of who I was before I learned to fight back, a reminder of who I never wanted to be again. The flight to Seattle was unremarkable. 3.5 hours, exit row seat because I could afford it now. A book I didn't read, a drink I didn't finish, a window view of clouds and mountains and the abstract geography of moving on. Marcus drove me to the airport. He insisted, said it was the least he could do. I didn't argue. At the departure curb, he helped me with my bags, just 2 suitcases and a carry-on because I'd sold or donated most of my possessions. And then we stood there awkwardly, 2 people who were never supposed to be friends but had somehow become something like it anyway. So, he said, quantum computing. Quantum computing. I have no idea what that means. Most people don't. You're going to do great, he said. I know that's the kind of thing people say, but I mean it. You're the smartest person I know, and you've been held back for years by people who couldn't see it. Now you're going somewhere that will. Thank you for everything. The files, the warning, being on my side even when it meant going against your family. I wasn't on your side, Marcus said. I was on the right side. It just happened to be the same thing. Is your family speaking to you? Barely. My mother thinks I betrayed them by not telling them you had the financial records. My father thinks I'm weak for not standing with the family. Melissa just thinks I'm boring. So, typical Ashton dynamics. I'm sorry. Don't be. It's liberating in a weird way. Like now that they're disappointed in me, I don't have to try to make them proud. I can just exist. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. Maybe quit the company, maybe go back to school, maybe move somewhere far away and start over, like you. That worked out pretty well for me. Yeah, he said. It did. We hugged, brief, masculine, awkward, the way brothers who aren't actually brothers hug. Stay in touch, he said. I will. I didn't know if that was true, but it felt like the right thing to say. I went through security, boarded the plane, flew west. When I landed in Seattle, it was raining. Of course it was raining. Seattle's reputation was well earned, but it wasn't the oppressive rain of a storm. It was gentle, persistent, the kind of rain that didn't demand attention, just quietly existed. I took a car to my new apartment, a one-bedroom in Capitol Hill, near the Research Institute, costing less per month than Charlotte's apartment had cost per week, and climbed 3 flights of stairs with my 2 suitcases. The apartment was small, unfurnished except for the basics. The walls were white, the floors were hardwood, scarred and worn. The windows looked out on other buildings, other windows, other lives happening in parallel. It was perfect. I set down my bags, stood in the middle of the empty living room, and I breathed. No family photos to arrange on shelves, no carefully curated aesthetic to maintain, no performance of belonging to execute, just space, possibility, the blank canvas of a life that hadn't been planned by someone else. My phone buzzed, a text from Rebecca. "Did you land safely?" "Just got to the apartment," I replied. "How is it?" "Empty." "Perfect. That's the right attitude. Enjoy your emptiness. You earned it." Another text, this one from Priya, my graduate student. "Professor Chen, or should I say Dr. Chen now that you're fancy. Good luck in Seattle. Thanks for being an amazing teacher. Don't forget us when you're solving quantum mysteries." I smiled. Typed back, "Thanks, Priya. Keep me updated on your research." And it's still just David. I spent the rest of the day shopping. IKEA for furniture, Target for basics, a grocery store for food that I could actually afford without calculating the impact on my budget. I bought a bed frame, a desk, a couch, plates, silverware, towels, a coffee maker. Everything that makes a place a home when home is something you're building for yourself instead of something you're occupying at someone else's discretion. The furniture took hours to assemble. I didn't mind. Each piece was evidence, proof that I could build something with my own hands, even if it was just a bookshelf with slightly uneven shelves. By evening, the apartment looked lived in. Not fancy, not expensive, but mine. I ordered pizza. Cheap pizza from a place with a hand-painted sign and a C health rating that felt authentic in ways that Lumiere could never be. I ate it sitting on my new couch, watching rain streak down the windows, listening to the sounds of the building. Footsteps above, music through walls, the ambient noise of other people living their lives nearby. It was the best meal I'd had in months. My phone rang. Unknown number. Seattle area code. I answered. "Hello? Hi, is this David Chen?" "It is." "This is Karen Winters. I'm the director of the Quantum Computing Research Institute. I wanted to reach out personally to welcome you to the team and see if you needed anything as you're settling in." "That's very kind of you. I'm settling in well." "Excellent. I wanted to let you know how excited we are to have you. Your work on algorithmic complexity is exceptional. We think you are going to make significant contributions here." "Thank you. I'm excited too." "I also wanted to mention, I noticed your resume showed several years of adjunct teaching at a university. That's actually perfect because we're launching a new graduate program and we need faculty who can teach as well as research. Would you be interested in developing a course on quantum algorithms?" "I would love that." "Wonderful. We'll discuss it more when you start on Monday. But I wanted to plant the seed. We value teaching here. We think it makes the research better. So don't hide that part of yourself." After she hung up, I sat holding the phone, processing what she'd said. Don't hide that part of yourself. For 7 years, I'd hidden that part of myself. The part that loved teaching, that got excited about explaining complex ideas, that found satisfaction in watching students understand something that had confused them minutes before. I'd hidden it because the Ashtons didn't value it, because teaching at a university wasn't prestigious enough, because professors who made middle-class salaries weren't worth mentioning at their dinner parties. But here, in this new place, with these new people, it was valued. I was valued. Not despite what I did, but because of it. I wasn't going to hide anymore. Monday morning, I reported to the Institute. It was housed in a modern building on the edge of the university campus, all glass and steel and open spaces designed to encourage collaboration. There were whiteboards everywhere, labs full of equipment I only partially understood. Meeting rooms with names like Heisenberg and Schrödinger and Feynman. My office was on the third floor, small but with a window, a desk, a whiteboard, shelves for books, everything I needed. Karen showed me around, introduced me to the team, researchers from all over the world, India, Japan, Germany, Brazil, Australia, people who'd come here because the work mattered more than the prestige, because solving problems was more important than being seen solving problems. We're glad you're here, Karen said as we finished the tour. We need people who think differently, who see patterns other people miss. From what I've read of your work, that's you. I hope I can live up to that. You will, trust me. I'm very good at recognizing talent, and you have it in abundance. That afternoon, I met my research team. 4 people, 2 postdocs and 2 graduate students, all brilliant, all younger than me, all intimidatingly accomplished. So one of the postdocs, a woman named Amy from Toronto, said, "What's your approach to quantum error correction?" I opened my mouth to give the careful, measured response I'd learned to give in Charlotte's World. The response that wouldn't sound too technical or too passionate or too much. Then I stopped. I was in a room full of people who understood what I did, who cared about what I did, who wanted to hear what I actually thought, not a watered-down version designed not to offend or bore anyone. Honestly, I said, I think we're approaching it wrong. We're trying to correct errors after they happen instead of designing systems that are inherently more robust to the types of errors we know will occur. It's like we're building houses in earthquake zones and then adding supports after the earthquake instead of designing earthquake-resistant architecture from the beginning. Amy leaned forward. Go on. Most quantum error correction codes are based on classical error correction theory, which makes sense. We're adapting what works. But quantum systems aren't just classical systems with extra steps. They're fundamentally different. They have properties like entanglement and superposition that classical systems don't have. What if we could use those properties to create error correction that's native to quantum mechanics instead of borrowed from classical computing? That's one of the grad students, Jason, said slowly. That's actually a really interesting approach. It's probably impossible, I added quickly. Probably, Amy agreed. But that's what makes it interesting. Let's work on it. And just like that, I was home. Not Seattle, not the apartment, not even the institute specifically, but this, the work, the conversation, the feeling of being surrounded by people who spoke my language and valued what I valued. This was home. We worked for 4 hours straight, filling whiteboards, arguing about theory, building mathematical models, getting excited about ideas that wouldn't make sense to anyone outside this room. It was the best day I'd had in 7 years. When I left that evening, walking through the Seattle rain back to my apartment, I felt something I hadn't felt since before I'd married Charlotte. Purpose. 6 months passed. I settled into Seattle, into the Institute, into my new life. I published a paper on quantum error correction that got some attention in the field. Not world-changing attention, but enough that people started knowing my name for reasons other than being Charlotte Ashton's ex-husband. I taught a graduate seminar that filled up within hours of registration opening. My students were hungry, curious, challenging in the best ways. One of them, a brilliant woman named Sophia from Chile, was working on a thesis that might actually solve one of the major problems in the field. I bought a used bicycle and rode it to work most days. I joined a coffee shop's regular customer program and learned the baristas' names. I found a bookstore that had a cat and hosted readings. I went to concerts at small venues. I hiked in the mountains on weekends. I dated someone briefly, a software engineer named Michael I met at a tech meetup. But it didn't go anywhere. Not because of anything wrong with him, just because I wasn't ready. I was still learning how to be David Chen, single person, after so many years of being David Chen, Charlotte's husband. That was okay. There was no timeline I needed to follow, no family expectations to meet, no one judging whether I was moving on appropriately or fast enough or successfully enough. I talked to Rebecca occasionally, brief check-ins. She was proud of what I was building, said I was her favorite success story. I talked to Marcus more than I expected to. He'd quit the family business. Enrolled in law school, was trying to figure out who he was when he wasn't an Ashton first. We were friends now, real friends. The kind who sent each other stupid memes and had actual conversations about actual things. I didn't talk to Charlotte. I didn't follow her on social media. Didn't ask Marcus about her. Didn't Google her name to see what she was doing. I let her become part of my past instead of a presence in my present. And then, 6 months after I moved to Seattle, my phone rang at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Unknown number. New York area code. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? David? The voice was female, familiar. Not Charlotte. It's Victoria. I sat up in bed. How did you get this number? That's not important. I need to talk to you. We have nothing to talk about. Please, just 5 minutes. I'm asking, I'm not demanding, I'm asking. There was something in her voice, something I'd never heard before. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. What's wrong? I asked. It's Robert. There's been an investigation, the IRS, the SEC. They're looking at the company's financial records. They're asking questions about property valuations and offshore accounts in subsidiary companies. They're talking about fraud, about criminal charges. My stomach dropped. I know you didn't. That's not why I'm calling. The lawyer said the investigation started from an anonymous tip, someone who worked in commercial real estate and noticed irregularities. Not you, but David, they're going through everything. And they're finding all the things you must have found, all the things you could have rewarded but didn't. Why are you calling me? Because I need to know. Her voice broke slightly. I need to know if you have evidence. If you kept records. If you're going to give them to the investigators. I destroyed the records, I said, months ago. I'm not part of this. You swear? I swear. I chose to walk away. I chose to let it go. I'm not the one doing this to you. She was quiet for a long moment. Why? Why what? Why did you walk away? You had everything you needed to destroy us. You had the evidence. You had the motivation. You had every right to want revenge. Why didn't you take it? I thought about how to answer that. Because revenge would have kept me tied to you, I said finally. And I wanted to be free more than I wanted to be right. She paused. That's very mature of you. I'm trying something new. David, I need to apologize to you. You don't, I do. What we did to you was cruel. The background check, the planning, the way we ended things, all of it. I told myself we were being practical, that we were protecting the family, that you'd be fine. But that was just me justifying cruelty as strategy. Why are you apologizing now? Because karma is real, she said, and she laughed, but it was bitter. Because I spent 7 years treating you like you were disposable, and now my husband might go to prison, and my family's legacy might end, and I'm realizing that maybe how you treat people matters more than how much money you have, or how prestigious your name is. That's a hard lesson. It's a devastating lesson. My whole life I believed that if you had enough money, enough lawyers, enough connections, you were untouchable. Turns out that's not true. Turns out consequences exist even for people like us. I'm sorry you're going through this, I said. And surprisingly, I meant it. Are you? Really? I'm not happy about it, but I'm not celebrating either. I'm neutral, which is probably the best I can offer. That's more generous than I deserve. She took a shaky breath. Charlotte asks about you sometimes. Does she? She wonders if you're happy, if you've moved on, if you hate her. Tell her I'm happy. I have moved on, and I don't hate her. I don't hate any of you. I'm just done. Done, Victoria repeated. That's worse than hate, isn't it? I don't know. Maybe, but it's honest. Will you testify? She asked. If they ask you, if the investigators want to know what you saw? I don't know. If I'm subpoenaed, I'll have to tell the truth, Ali, but I'm not volunteering anything. I'm not going out of my way to help or hurt you. I'm just living my life. That's fair. She paused. I heard you're doing well, that you have a good bone, that you published something important. How did you hear that? I Googled you. I wanted to see what happened to the man we dismissed as non-threatening and manageable. And, and you're thriving. You're doing exactly what you should have been doing all along. You're valued for what you're good at instead of judged for what you lack. I'm glad, truly. You deserve that. Thank you. I should go. I just needed to know if you were part of this investigation and to apologize, even if it's too late. It's not too late for an apology. It might be too late to fix what was broken, but it's not too late to acknowledge it was broken. You're very kind. Much kinder than I would be in your position. I'm not kind. I'm just tired of carrying anger. It's heavy. Yes, she said softly. It is. After she hung up, I sat in the dark of my bedroom, processing the conversation. The investigation wasn't my doing. Someone else had noticed. Someone else had reported. Someone else had decided the Ashtons needed to face consequences. I could have been that someone. I'd chosen not to be. And now consequences were happening anyway. The universe had its own algorithms, its own way of solving problems. I didn't need to be the one implementing them. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, not even curiosity about what would happen to Robert or the company or the family name. Just nothing. They'd moved from present tense to past tense in my life. And that was exactly where I wanted them to stay. A year after leaving Charlotte, I published the paper that changed everything. It was called Emergent Error Correction in Topologically Protected Quantum Systems, a New Framework. The title was dense, academic, the kind of thing that would make non-specialists' eyes glaze over immediately. But in the quantum computing world, it was a bomb. The core idea was what I discussed with my team that first day. Instead of correcting quantum errors after they happened, we could design systems where the quantum states themselves were inherently resistant to the types of errors we knew would occur. By using the topological properties of certain quantum systems, essentially, as the shape and structure of how quantum information was stored, we could create error correction that was native to the physics rather than imposed from classical computing theory. It was theoretical. It would take years, maybe decades, to implement practically. But it solved a problem that people had been working on for 20 years. The paper was accepted to Nature, one of the top scientific journals in the world, the kind of publication that makes careers. My phone exploded, interview requests from science journalists, speaking invitations from conferences, job offers from universities and tech companies. A profile in Wired that called me one of the most promising minds in quantum computing. Karen called me into her office. "So," she said, grinning, "you're famous now." "I'm not famous. The paper is getting attention." "That's different." "David, Google is calling, IBM is calling, Microsoft is calling. They want to hire you. They want to fund your research. They want you to consult. You're famous." "That's overwhelming." "It's also deserved. You did something genuinely innovative. You solved a problem everyone said was impossible. You earned this." "What do I do?" "What do you want to do?" I thought about it. I want to stay here. I want to keep teaching. I want to keep working with my team. I want to develop this theory further. I don't want to be famous. I just want to do good work. "Then do that. Turn down the job offers. Do the consulting remotely if you want the extra money. Give talks at conferences if you want to share the work. But stay here. Keep doing what you're doing. We'd like to make you a full professor, by the way, with tenure. If you're interested." "I'm interested." "Good, because you're exactly the kind of faculty we need. Someone who's brilliant but also kind, who publishes groundbreaking work but also cares about teaching, who values collaboration over competition." After I left her office, I sat in my own office for a while, looking at the framed copy of the paper on my wall. A year ago, I'd been teaching adjunct classes and sleeping on a mattress on the floor and trying to figure out who I was after my marriage imploded. Now I was a full professor with tenure, an author of a Nature paper. Someone science journalists wanted to interview. It was surreal. My phone buzzed, a text from Marcus. "Saw your paper in Nature." Well, saw the headline, didn't understand a word of the actual paper, but very impressed anyway. "Congratulations." I smiled. Type back. Thanks. How's law school? Hard. Humbling. Good. I'm learning that being the dumbest person in the room is actually healthy for me. That's growth. That's therapy. Speaking of which, my family situation has updates if you care. Only if you want to share. Dad's case is ongoing. Likely settlement with fines. No jail time probably. Mom is selling properties to pay legal fees. Melissa is engaged to someone even richer than us, so she'll be fine. In Charlotte, there was a long pause. Charlotte is in California, working for a nonprofit, something about affordable housing. She says it's her penance. I think she's actually good at it. She asks about you sometimes. Woody Amweller, that you're doing great, that you're happy, that you don't hate her. She doesn't believe the last part. I don't hate her, I know. But she doesn't believe it. I think she needs you to hate her. It would make what she did make more sense. You being happy and successful and not angry, it breaks her narrative. That's not my problem. I know, but I thought you should know. Thanks for the update. Congrats again on the paper. You're doing exactly what you should be doing, exactly who you should be. I set down the phone. Charlotte was in California, working for a nonprofit, doing penance. I felt glad, not for me, for her, because it meant she was trying, growing, becoming someone different than who she'd been. That was more than enough. 2 months later, I was interviewed by a podcast called The Genius Code. It was one of those long-form interview shows where they talk to scientists and artists and thinkers about their work and life and philosophy. The host, a woman named Dr. Sarah Chen, no relation, was smart and prepared and asked good questions. So, she said about 40 minutes into the interview, your paper came out last year and made a huge splash. But looking at your CV, you were teaching as an adjunct at a small university before that. What changed? I changed, I said. Can you elaborate? I thought about how to answer. We were recording in a studio in Seattle. There were cameras and microphones and people watching behind glass, but somehow it felt intimate, like a conversation between two people who both understood what it meant to love ideas. I spent a lot of years making myself smaller, I said, quieter, less. I was in a relationship where I felt like I had to apologize for being passionate about my work, where caring too much about mathematics was seen as, I don't know, boring, inappropriate, not valuable. That sounds difficult. It was, but I didn't realize how difficult until I got out. Until I moved here and started working with people who valued the same things I valued, who got excited about the same things I got excited about, who didn't make me feel like I needed to translate my passion into something more palatable. Your ex-wife? I paused. How did you know? I did my research, Sarah said gently. There were some news stories about your divorce, about the settlement. I wanted to ask about it, but I also don't want to pry. It's okay. It's part of my story. Yes, my ex-wife, her family, they were very wealthy, very prestigious, very focused on appearances and status, and I was not. What were you? A mathematician who loved teaching and research and solving problems. But in their world, that wasn't valuable unless it came with money or fame or social capital. So I started hiding it, making it smaller, acting like it was just a job instead of a calling. And then the marriage ended. Badly, publicly, in a way that was designed to make me feel small and disposable. And it worked for a while. I felt exactly as small and disposable as they intended. But then I decided to fight back, not by making them feel small, by refusing to stay small myself. I got a lawyer. I challenged their prenup. I demanded fair compensation. And more importantly, I decided to stop hiding who I was and what I valued. Hence the move to Seattle, the new job, the paper. Exactly. I stopped apologizing for being a mathematician. I stopped treating my work like it was less important than other people's work. I stopped making myself small so other people could feel big. That's powerful, Sarah said. And the paper, your breakthrough, came after that decision? Yes, because I was finally in an environment where I could be fully myself, where I could be obsessed with quantum error correction without anyone rolling their eyes or checking their watch, or ask us when I was going to do something more practical. I could just work, think, collaborate, create. There's a lesson in there, Sarah said. What lesson? That your best work comes when you stop trying to be acceptable and start trying to be excellent. I thought about that. Yeah, that's exactly it. Can I ask, do you have any regrets about the marriage, about how it ended? I regret the time I spent making myself small. I regret not fighting back sooner. I regret believing people who told me I wasn't valuable when I was exactly as valuable as I needed to be. I just needed to find the right people to see it. What about the divorce itself, the way it happened? No, I said, I don't regret that, because the way it happened, publicly, cruelly, with witnesses, made it impossible for me to pretend it was mutual or amicable or anything other than what it was, a rejection. And that rejection forced me to ask myself who I was going to be, whether I was going to accept their assessment of me or build my own. And you built your own. I built my own. The interview went on for another hour. We talked about the technical aspects of the paper, about quantum computing's future, about the relationship between teaching and research, about what it meant to think creatively in a field dominated by equations and proofs. When it was over, Sarah turned off the microphones and smiled at me. That was great, she said, really great. But can I tell you something off the record? Sure. The best part of this interview wasn't the stuff about quantum error correction. It was the stuff about your divorce, about choosing yourself, about refusing to stay small. That's the part people are going to remember. Really? Really? Because everyone knows what it feels like to make themselves smaller for someone else. Everyone's been in a relationship or a situation where they had to hide who they really were to be acceptable. Your story, it's not just about quantum computing. It's about reclaiming yourself. I didn't think of it that way. Maybe you should, she said, because that's a story worth telling. That's a story that matters beyond academic circles. The podcast went live 2 weeks later. It was downloaded 2 million times in the first month. I started getting messages, not from scientists, from regular people, people who'd been in bad marriages, people who'd been made to feel small, people who were trying to figure out how to build their own lives instead of living in the margins of someone else's. One message said, I listened to your interview while packing my things. My husband has been telling me for 10 years that my art doesn't matter, that I should focus on something practical, something real. Listening to you talk about refusing to stay small, it gave me courage. I left today. Thank you. Another said, I'm a chef. My family thinks I should be a doctor. They make jokes about my little cooking hobby. Your story helped me realize I don't need their approval. I'm opening my restaurant anyway. Another, I'm transgender. My family won't use my pronouns. They keep asking when I'm going to stop pretending and go back to being who I was. Your story about being told you weren't valuable and choosing to believe you were anyway, that's what I needed to hear. Thank you. I read every message, replied to as many as I could, and I realized Sarah was right. The quantum error correction paper was important. It would contribute to the field. It would move science forward. But the story of choosing myself, that was what people needed. That was what mattered beyond the equations. 2 years after the divorce, I was back in the city. Not my city anymore. Charlotte's city. The city I left behind when I moved to Seattle. I was there for a conference, a big one. Quantum computing researchers from around the world. I was giving a keynote address about my work on emergent error correction. The conference was at the Moscone Center, near where Charlotte and I used to live, near Lumiere, the restaurant where it had all ended. I hadn't been back since I left. I'd thought about it sometimes, what it would feel like to return, whether I'd feel anything, whether the city would still hold power over me, or whether time and distance and success had neutralized it. The morning of my keynote, I went for a walk. I found myself, almost unconsciously, walking toward the old apartment, the building Charlotte owned, where we'd lived together, where I'd slept on the edge of the bed because I'd learned not to take up too much space. I stood outside looking up at the windows. I felt nothing. No anger, no nostalgia, no longing, just the detached interest of someone looking at a building where they used to live, like looking at childhood photos and recognizing your face but not quite remembering being that person. I kept walking. I ended up near Lumiere. The restaurant was still there, still expensive, still exclusive, still the kind of place that reminded you that some people had money and you probably didn't. I could have walked past it, but instead I went inside. Reservation? The host asked. Young, beautiful, trained to assess whether you belonged. No reservation, I said. Just want a drink at the bar. She hesitated, looked at my clothes, nice, but not Ashton nice. Looked at my face, familiar, but she couldn't place it. The bar is first come, first served, she said finally. I went upstairs. The bar was half full. Professionals having post-work drinks, a couple on what looked like a first date, a lone businessman doing emails on his phone. I sat at the bar, ordered a whiskey, expensive but not the most expensive. I could afford the most expensive now, but that wasn't the point. The bartender poured, set it in front of me. Moved on to the next customer. I looked around. It looked different than I remembered. Smaller maybe, or maybe I was bigger now. Maybe I took up more space than I used to. Maybe I'd stopped apologizing for existing in rooms like this. I thought about the last time I was here. 2 years ago, my birthday, the envelope, the papers, Melissa's camera, Charlotte's silence. From all of us, Victoria had said, I'd thanked them, walked out, started my life over. And now I was back. But not as the man who'd been discarded, as someone who'd been invited to keynote a major conference, someone who'd published groundbreaking work, someone who'd built a life that was entirely, completely his own. David? I turned. Charlotte was standing there. She looked different. Her hair was shorter. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, not the designer clothes I remembered. She looked real, like a person instead of a performance. Charlotte, I said. Hi. Hi, I thought that was you. What are you doing here? Having a drink? I mean in the city. Conference. I'm giving a keynote tomorrow. Right, of course. I heard about your paper. Congratulations. It sounded very impressive. You read it? I tried to read it, and I understood maybe 10%. But Marcus explained it to me. Said you basically solved something everyone thought was impossible. Marcus is generous. I solved one small part of one large problem. He also said you're famous now, in quantum computing circles. I wouldn't say famous. Successful then? Yeah, I said, successful. How are you? Marcus said you're in California? San Francisco. I'm working for a nonprofit. We build affordable housing. It's different from what I did before. Different good or different bad? Different good. It's hard work, real work. Not just managing money or attending meetings or deciding which property to invest in. We actually build things. We actually help people. That sounds meaningful. It is. It's also humbling. I'm not in charge. I'm not the boss. I'm not the Ashton daughter. I'm just Charlotte, project manager. It's the first job I've ever had where my last name didn't matter. How does that feel? Scary, liberating, like I'm finally figuring out who I am when I'm not performing for anyone. We looked at each other for a moment. Do you want to sit? I asked. She hesitated, then nodded, took the stool next to mine, ordered a glass of wine. We sat in silence for a moment. This is weird, she said finally. Yeah. The last time we were here, I know. I'm sorry for all of it. I've said it before, but I need to say it again. What we did to you, what I let them do to you, it was cruel. And I knew it was cruel, and I did it anyway. Why, I asked. I've never understood why. If you knew it was cruel, if you knew it would hurt me, why that way? Why so publicly? Why the camera? She looked down at her wine. Because my mother convinced me that if we did it publicly, if we had witnesses, you wouldn't fight, you'd be too embarrassed, too humiliated. You'd just sign the papers and go away quietly. And you believe that? I wanted to believe it, because the alternative was having a conversation, looking you in the eye and telling you I didn't want to be married anymore, facing your hurt directly. And I was too much of a coward for that. So you let your family do it for you, Chen. Yes, I let them do it. I participated. I made it possible. And that's the thing I'm most ashamed of. Not that it ended, but how it ended. That I was so weak I couldn't even break up with you myself. That's honest, I said. I'm trying to be honest now. It's part of therapy, being honest instead of strategic, saying what I mean instead of what's most convenient. How's that going? Harder than quantum computing, probably. I laughed, actually laughed. Probably. She smiled. Marcus told me you're happy, that you've moved on, that you don't hate me. I don't hate you. Do you forgive me? I thought about it, really thought about it. I don't know. I don't think about it that way. Forgiveness implies you did something to me that I need to process and release. But you didn't do something to me. You ended our marriage badly. That hurt, but it also freed me. It forced me to build a life I actually wanted instead of the life I thought I should want. So I accidentally did you a favor. In a way, not on purpose, not with good intentions. But the outcome, yeah, it worked out well for me. I'm glad, she said quietly. I mean it. I'm glad you're happy. I'm glad you're successful. I'm glad you're living the life you should have been living all along. What about you? Are you happy? I'm getting there. I'm learning what happiness looks like when it's not about money or status or my family's approval. It's slower, smaller, less impressive on the outside, but more real. That sounds like growth. It's painful growth. But yeah, we finished our drinks. I should go, Charlotte said. I'm meeting a friend for dinner, but it was good to see you, David. Really good. You too. She stood, hesitated. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd been braver? If I'd stood up to my family? If I'd chosen you? Sometimes, I said honestly, but not as much as you'd think. Because the person who would have chosen me, that's not who you were then. Maybe not who you are now. And I can't build a life on what ifs. That's fair. She put money on the bar for her wine. Good luck with your keynote tomorrow. I hope you get a standing ovation. Thank you. She walked away. I sat there for a while longer, finishing my whiskey, thinking about what she'd said. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I'd been braver? The honest answer was yes. Sometimes I wondered, but mostly I was grateful she hadn't been. Because if she'd chosen me then, I would have stayed. I would have kept making myself small. I would have kept apologizing for taking up space. I would have never written the paper. I would have never become who I was now. Arthur, sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is the best thing that could have happened. The next morning, I stood backstage at the conference, waiting to go on. 3,000 people in the audience. Researchers, engineers, students, investors, journalists, all there to hear about the cutting edge of quantum computing. All there to hear me. Karen was beside me. She'd flown in from Seattle to support me. Nervous? She asked. Terrified. Good. Terror means you care. If you weren't nervous, I'd be worried. What if I forget everything? What if I freeze up there? Then you remember that you're David Chen. You wrote a paper that changed the field. You're a full professor at one of the best research institutes in the world. You have nothing to prove to anyone, except to everyone in that audience. You have nothing to prove to them either. You're not here to prove anything, Imang. You're here to share, to teach, to contribute. That's it. I took a breath. Okay. And David? Yeah. Enjoy it. This is a moment you've earned. Don't spend it being afraid. Spend it being present. The moderator called my name. I walked on stage. The lights were bright. The audience was large. The screen behind me showed my title slide, Emergent Error Correction, a New Paradigm in Quantum Computing. I looked out at the crowd and I smiled, because 2 years ago, I'd been sitting in a restaurant being filmed while my marriage ended. And now I was here, standing on a stage, about to talk about work I loved to people who cared about it. This was the algorithm I'd been building all along. Not the quantum error correction algorithm. That was just the output. The real algorithm was refuse to be small, do the work, trust yourself, build something real. And now I was here, at the solution, the answer to the problem. I began to speak. 2 years ago, I was at one of the lowest points in my life. I told them about being an adjunct professor, about feeling like my work didn't matter, about being told that teaching and research weren't valuable unless they came with prestige or money. I told them about the moment I decided to stop accepting that assessment. And then I told them about the paper, about the years of thinking that led to it, about the team that helped develop it, about the moment the solution clicked, and I realized we'd found something real. I walked them through the mathematics, the theory, the implications, the future applications. But I also told them about the human part, about why this work mattered, about what it meant to solve problems that seemed impossible, about the satisfaction of understanding something that had been mysterious. Quantum error correction is ultimately about protecting information, I said, about making sure that what's true stays true, even in the presence of noise and interference. And in a way, that's what we all have to do. Protect the truth of who we are even when the world is noisy, even when people tell us we're not valuable, even when we're made to feel small. We have to find ways to error correct our own lives, to build systems that protect what's essential even when everything around us is chaotic. The audience was silent, listening. This paper isn't just about quantum computing, I continued. It's about resilience. It's about creating systems, whether they're quantum systems or human systems, that can withstand interference and stay true to their core function. That's what I hope my work contributes. Not just better quantum computers, but better ways of thinking about how we protect what matters. I finished the technical portion, showed my results, presented my conclusions, thanked my collaborators. The lights came up, the audience stood, they were clapping. It was a standing ovation. Karen had been right. I looked out at 3,000 people standing and applauding, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not arrogant pride, not the kind that comes from being better than other people, but the quiet pride of knowing I'd done something hard, something valuable, something real. The pride of being exactly who I was supposed to be. After the keynote, there were questions. There were interviews. There were people wanting to discuss collaborations or offer funding or simply thank me for the work. I talked to everyone, answered every question, made time for the graduate students who nervously approached to ask about my research or seek advice about their careers. How do you know if you're on the right path? One of them asked. She was young, maybe 25, and brilliant, and clearly terrified she was making all the wrong choices. You don't? I said. Not while you're on it. You only know in retrospect. But here's what I can tell you. If the work feels real, if it matters to you even when no one's watching, if you do it even if there was no payoff, that's probably the right path. What if people tell you it's not valuable? Then those are the wrong people. Find better people. That's simple? It's not simple. It's incredibly hard, but it's true. At the end of the day, I went back to my hotel room, collapsed on the bed, checked my phone. There were messages from colleagues, from students, from Marcus, from Rebecca, from Amy and Jason and Sophia, and everyone at the Institute. And there was one from Charlotte. I watched your keynote online. Standing ovation. You deserve it. You were always brilliant. I'm sorry it took leaving me for you to be able to show it. Good luck with everything. I mean it. I read it twice. Then I typed, thank you. Good luck with your work too. I hope you find what you're looking for. I meant it. I did hope she found what she was looking for. I hope she figured out who Charlotte was when she wasn't performing. I hoped she built a life that felt real instead of impressive. I just hoped it's somewhere on away from me. I deleted the message thread, not out of anger, just out of completion. We were done. Finally, really done. The past tense had become permanent. 5 years after the divorce, I'm sitting in my office at the Institute. It's raining. Of course it's raining. This is Seattle, but it's a good rain, the kind that makes everything green and clean and new. On my desk, a copy of my Second Nature paper, a photo of my research team, a coffee mug that says, Quantum Mechanics, it's not rocket science, it's weirder, a stack of papers to grade, a proposal for a new research grant that will fund the next phase of my work. On my walls, degrees, awards, photos from conferences, a framed screenshot of an article calling me one of the leading researchers in quantum error correction. In my phone, messages from colleagues around the world, invitations to speak, collaboration requests, photos from Marcus, who graduated law school and is now doing public interest work. A text from Rebecca, checking in because she does that sometimes. And sitting across from me, a graduate student named Wei. He's brilliant, nervous, asking for advice about his dissertation. I don't know if it's good enough, he's saying. I don't know if it contributes anything new. I don't know if anyone will care. Do you care? I ask. Yes. Then it's good enough. That's the only metric that matters at this stage. Does it matter to you? Are you answering a question you genuinely want to answer? But what if it doesn't get published? What if no one reads it? What if I spend years on this and it goes nowhere? I think about how to answer that, about all the years I spent asking similar questions, all the years I thought my work didn't matter because the Ashtons didn't value it. Here's what I learned, I say. The work matters whether or not other people recognize it matters. Your value exists whether or not other people acknowledge it. You can spend your life trying to prove yourself to people who will never see your value, or you can do the work that feels true and find people who already understand. How do you find those people? You do the work, the real work, the work you do even if no one was watching. And then the right people find you. That's what happened to you? Eventually, after a lot of mistakes and wasted time and years of being in the wrong places with the wrong people. But yeah, eventually I found the right people by being myself as loud as I could. Wei nods, takes notes, asks more questions. After he leaves, I sit in my office for a while, looking out at the rain. I think about the man I was 7 years ago, the man who went to a restaurant for his birthday and got divorce papers, who walked out with nothing but a settlement offer he hadn't accepted yet and a plan he hadn't told anyone about. That man feels like a stranger now. Not because I've changed completely, but because I've become more myself, more comfortable in my own skin, more willing to take up space, more confident that my work matters, that my life matters, that I matter. The divorce was the worst thing that happened to me. It was also the best thing because it forced me to choose myself, to build a life on my terms, to stop apologizing for who I was and start celebrating it. My phone buzzes, a text from someone I've been seeing. Her name is Priya, not the grad student from years ago, different Priya. She's a climate scientist. Brilliant, funny, someone who gets excited about her work the way I get excited about mine. Someone who never asked me to be smaller or quieter or less. Dinner tonight, there's a new Ethiopian place that's supposed to be amazing. I smile. Type back. Sounds perfect. Perfect. I pack up my things, turn off my office light, walk out into the Seattle rain. And I think this is it. This is the life I was supposed to have all along, not the one the Ashtons planned for me. Not the one I thought I should want, but the one I built myself piece by piece, choice by choice, refusal by refusal. The algorithm worked, the solution was real, and I was finally, completely, irreversibly free. If you've ever been made to feel small by a partner, by a family, by a system that didn't value what you valued, I want you to know this. You are not non-threatening and manageable. You are not disposable. You are not temporary. You are exactly as valuable as you believe you are. And the people who can't see that, they're not your people. Find better people. Build a better life. Become who you're supposed to be, even if it means walking away from everyone who told you that person wasn't enough. Because you are enough. You always were. You just needed the right algorithm to prove it.